Chapter 79-33, The Gradually Changing Giant Dragon Territory. Chapter 79, Chapter 33, The Gradually Changing Giant Dragon Territory. The pioneer camp of human settlers is still constantly expanding, far surpassing the original boundaries of the ogre camp. Blocks of simple wooden houses, built from logs, stand within the camp, creating a chaotic and disordered scene from houses constructed without planning. After all, the controllers in the camp now devote most of their energy to fully grabbing profits, and besides sending servants and soldiers to collect relevant fees on schedule every month, they let the camp grow wildly the rest of the time. During this time, more and more people have come to this land, as the nobles, having lost the shackles upon them, can divert more effort and manpower here. During the preliminary cooperation with the giant dragons, they reaped enough benefits to increase investment costs for this fertile but undeveloped territory where numerous means to earn gold coins exist. And these people need not care about the construction and sustainable development of this land, so long as they exploit relentlessly, the cost of investment seems almost zero compared to the returns they gain. There are also some destitute minor nobles and knights who, in this tide of expansion, have sold all their possessions, brought along one or two loyal guards, and come to this land increasingly praised as a land of miracles by the desperate seeking a chance to turn their fortunes. Some civilian mages have also joined this crowd, however, unlike the destitute nobles and knights, even impoverished mages can often use their prowess to form a team. Moreover, civilian mages often have unique spells and skills due to frequent adventures, making them popular among adventurer teams. Thus, often the arrival of a mage signifies the arrival of an entire adventurer team. Lazy is one such mage. His team includes 2 strong warriors, a priest skilled in healing, a shadow assassin who is not good at interaction, and one mage himself, which is a standard configuration for most small adventurer teams. When Lazy and his adventurer team companions struggled out from the cramped ship cabin and set foot on this land, they realized perhaps the rumors were true. They were here not for adventure, but for profit. The entire camp has expanded so much that it stretches beyond sight. According to Lazy's estimation, this camp is almost akin to a bustling town within a noble territory. In fact, it is already a small town, even though it lacks the town garrison army that those towns without walls have. Everyone coming to this place calls this ever-expanding town Golden Harbor Town, implying that from this town's harbor flows shiploads of gold. Everyone who gains here strongly agrees with this name. The town hastily expanded without planning appears especially crowded, even though many adventurers and gold diggers have already headed to the woods and plains. The remaining people in this town still make it vibrant and prosperous. On the crowded streets, people rub shoulders, and many stalls line the roadsides, showcasing odd items like dark ores, gemstones akin to eyeballs, and herbs resembling twigs. There are also terrifying hides and bones from various creatures, and the stall owners are all gritty adventurers. Evidently, these items are their harvests from this land. Though Lazy is just a fortunate civilian mage inheriting powers, every mage grasps considerable knowledge. As he moved with his team through the crowds, Lazy used his knowledge to appraise goods on makeshift stalls, and the results astonished him. Most goods are rich in magical material. This is a beloved mage haven, a paradise for mage experiments, especially for mages proficient in magic alchemy, and Lazy made up his mind in his heart to make a fortune here. Lazy finally squeezed out of the throng with his team and found a tavern for a rest. Looking up, a large sign hung on the tavern's eaves, with a few crooked characters Rose and Heer's Tavern written in common tongue. The tavern, in fact, is not small at all. Even at noon, it's crowded inside. Lazy followed his team into the buzzing tavern and found a table to sit at. Though human adventurers occupy the majority, Lazy spotted some half-elves and beastmen, even 2 or 3 centaurs and kobolds coming and going. The human adventurers evidently took this situation casually, continuing chattering amongst themselves, while only Lazy and his companions seemed to feel a bit surprised. After all, to most people, kobolds and centaurs are hardly friendly to humans, especially kobolds. These creatures, though weak in combat, are extremely cold-blooded and brutal towards other races. Yet, these creatures sat peacefully at their respective tables, drinking, muttering in unknown languages to the mage. Clearly, this place features diverse comings and goings, with a strong sense of inclusivity. Checking the wall-mounted menu with limited drink varieties, a specially marked beverage caught Laze's attention. The mage waved to call over the tavern's attendant and asked, "Hey, barkeep, what's this? Even giant dragons speak well of drink. Give me a cup to try." He scampered up. Ever since he and his friend Rose discovered the lucrative profits of selling drinks far surpassing mere food sales, the clever suggested partnering with Rose to open this tavern. Time proved Her's vision paired with Rose's skills brings tremendous success, expanding from a small eatery to this present tavern, yielding profits far beyond running a restaurant. Since they already established good relations with the dragon's beloved, they not only received care when searching for brewing materials in the woods, but numerous dragons beloved frequently visited this tavern. Especially as those dragons beloved understood the principles of trade, yet hadn't grasped exact currency values, often exchanging a grain of sand gold or small fragmented gemstones for a sweet drink. Nevertheless, neither Rose nor Her let greed cloud their reason. A lasting customer source forms the foundation for their tavern's sustained presence. Thus, the tavern consistently exchanged the surplus drink currency for gold coins or silver coins and copper coins to return to the dragon's beloved. Seeing the tavern's honest bosses, the frequency and number of visits by the dragon's beloved increased. With these creatures as examples, adventurers in the town also began favoring consumption at this tavern. Due to daily bustling business, even with several hired helpers, Her still had to personally make rounds. Her stood before the mage, smilingly explaining, "Dear guests, this drink is made with over 100 kinds of flowers and fruits from the forest blended with luxurious sweets, a beverage even the dragon lords governing this land enjoy. But as most are supplied to the dragons, our tavern can only provide 10 cups or so daily, and all quotas are currently sold out. So would the customers consider switching for another beverage?" Mage Laza glanced at his companions. One warrior nodded and said, "All right, then let's have each of us a cup." Dragons beloved also speak highly of it. Her happily nodded. This drink ranks among the priciest within the tavern. Judging from the customer's capability, he better keep an eye on them, notifying the dragon's beloved promptly if needed. He then smilingly said, "Please wait here for a moment, your drinks will be served shortly." Source: webnovel.com, updated by novlove.com. Chapter 80-34, The Small Rules of the Territory. Chapter 80, Chapter 34, The Small Rules of the Territory. The drinks ordered by the mage were quickly served, each glass resembling white berry juice exuding a strong aroma. The impatient warrior couldn't resist taking a big gulp. Cough, cough, cough. The unexpected taste made even the strong warrior choke, and his stern face reddened. The dwarf adventurers around the tables burst into laughter. "Those dragons beloved have monstrous bodies, only a warrior as mighty as me would dare try such a drink. That human boy, if you can't handle it, don't drink it, or later your companions will have to carry you back." A dwarf, shorter than most but with well-developed limbs, stood up, his bulging muscles under his short stature making him look like a block of muscle. This dwarf adventurer from the mountains looked at Mage Raise's team and provocatively said, "Human boy, if you can't handle it, give that drink to me, Clagan. I can down a whole glass in one gulp, so you won't have to force yourself in front of your companions." The warrior's face reddened. Though adventurers often encounter such problems during their travels, sometimes one just can't hold it in through habit alone. He stood up, placing a hand on the broadsword behind him, and coldly said, "Little dwarf, do you want to spar with me? Come on, I'll let you taste the might of the great sword." All the customers in the tavern looked over, even the murmuring centaurs and kobolds turned with curious expressions towards the arguing parties. Unexpectedly, the provocative dwarf Clagan suddenly backed down, shaking his head, his braided beard swinging, and sighed, "Didn't expect this human lad to be so calm, looks like I won't get a drink this time." Everyone watching the conflict burst into laughter, and some familiar patrons jokingly teased, "Clagan, you always provoke newcomers, be careful you don't get ambushed outside the town just for a drink." "Ha, I won't actually fight them. If they get taken advantage of, it's just because they didn't pay attention to the town's rules," the dwarf said with a seemingly honest face but with a hint of cunning. Seeing the dwarf's provocation fail, He stepped forward to explain to the puzzled Reza team. It turned out that since the Blue Dragon DOS sent Dragon's Beloved to retake control of the town, many must-follow decrees have been implemented. One such decree prohibits private fights anywhere in the town. If a private fight occurs, the instigating party bears full responsibility, and all their assets are confiscated. If a private fight occurs in places like a tavern, the confiscated assets are used to compensate the tavern owner, and a portion is given to patrons affected by the fight. The consequence of a tavern fight is a complete confiscation of assets, and all present patrons are compensated with a large drink. Therefore, the dwarf Clagan would often provoke newcomers to Golden Harbor Town for a drink, with neither the patrons nor the owners Rose and He stopping him. This has become a local unwritten rule, a fun little game for them, even though not exactly welcoming to newcomers. After such a lesson, newcomers often become very compliant and conscientious about following the town's security ordinances. This aligned closely with the original intent of the Blue Dragon DOS's decrees. After all, Blue Dragon DOS prioritizes the interest of the Dragon Group, and in his decrees, humans in the town must fully comply with Dragon-made order and cannot resist or provoke Dragon's Beloved. Of course, Blue Dragon DOS also intended for these humans to become habituated to Dragon-made rules, simplifying future exploits. Those who violated the ordinances often didn't need the Dragon's minions to act, residents would arrest the violators themselves. Because everyone gathered here is for fortune and gain, no one wants stable interests disrupted by newcomers with detrimental outcomes, harming their own interests. In a sense, residents are gradually becoming accomplices to the dragons, even if those dragons are the infamously vile five-color dragons in the outside world. After hearing Heer's explanation, Reza and the team felt a wave of relief, thankful they were cautious from many adventures instead of rashly acting, as the outcome would be disastrous. The adventurer members exchanged glances, and the comely shadow assassin said, "Looks like until we fully understand this place's rules, we should not act carelessly. We wouldn't want to offend those dragons. If an error occurs, this place doesn't seem easy to escape." The team members looked at the nonchalantly drinking monsters around and nodded in agreement. "In that case, we'll rest here for a bit, then disperse to gather information, and regroup at the tavern entrance," said the team leader, the priest. Amidst the crowd, the mage observed the surroundings keenly, collecting information from other adventurers while seeking the town center. Generally, most ordinances and announcements are declared at the town center, and finding it would provide an understanding of most of the place's operating rules. As for the other unwritten rules, his companions would explore them, though with the stealthy shadow assassin, he wasn't too worried. Gathering intelligence is a shadow assassin's specialty, making an excellent information collection expert. Those purely reliant on raw abilities like rash youth stage 5 color dragons often end up glorifying others. In the bustling crowd, the mage suddenly noticed a large group of monsters, undoubtedly Dragon's Beloveds, with the leading centaur distinctively having dragon descendant species traits. This centaur, nearly 4 meters tall, was covered in dense crimson scales, with its bulging muscles seemingly stretching the scales. Though the other centaur warriors were also large, they appeared particularly frail beside this dragon-blooded centaur, let alone the smaller kobolds behind. The mage speculated that the massive hooves of this dragon-blooded centaur could easily crush a kobold warrior. In the mage's view, this dragon-blooded centaur exuded powerful energy waves, making the mage realize that perhaps his entire adventurer team wouldn't stand against this centaur. But perhaps the humans here were accustomed to these monsters, showing no fear, anger, or terror, continuing their routine activities. Some clever adventurers, upon seeing the notice clutched in the dragon-blooded centaur's hand, followed the dragon's beloved procession. Observant, the mage wanted to follow too, recognizing the announcement in the centaur warrior's hand, possibly representing new intentions of the dragons ruling this land, needing to follow for clarity. But he suddenly sensed shadows approaching from the sky, prompting the mage to look up. In the distant towering forest, a sky filled with black clouds arose, a sky filled with flying birds. Cawing ravenmen flapped wings leading the bird flock, with giant eagles as the flock's eyes, fierce eagles as the wings' bones, cranes as the body, vultures as the talons, and myriad birds as the feathers. A massive dragon, its scales beautiful as jade, stretched forest green wings wide, breaking free of forest constraints, soaring into the sky, flying above the bird flock. The bird flock resembled clouds beneath the dragon, their movements changing with the dragon's actions, like soldiers moving to honor their emperor under the dragon's dominion. The variously colored bird feathers in the flock fluttered, draping the green dragon in a colorful sheer feathered robe beneath. The bird flock followed this beautiful green dragon past the forest, over the town, heading towards the distant plains. Mage Razi returned to his senses, having seen the green dragon of the Gogomola dragon group, leaving him to wonder about the splendor of the one known as King of Earth and Metal, Tyrant of Flames and Magma, the Red Dragon. Source: webnovel.com, updated by novlove.com. Chapter 81-35, How can one manage a territory well? Chapter 81, Chapter 35, How can one manage a territory well? The dragon-blooded centaur Karon commanded the monsters under his charge to push the crowd away from the bulletin board. Under his command, the centaur warriors and kobolds struggled to clear the people within a 3-meter radius around Karon. These dragons beloved did not carry any weapons in this primarily human town, only holding long sticks used for maintaining daily order. Although the artisans brought by these human nobility and merchants continuously smelt iron ore, the main focus of the melting workshops remained on other precious ores, and these iron ores were only smelted incidentally. Even though the dragons have begun consciously assigning their beloveds to human melting workshops to learn casting techniques, they still cannot satisfy all the weapon needs of their beloved in a short time. Currently, except for the warriors of the centaur tribe, who are naturally excellent cavalry with strong combat abilities, other dragons beloved still use crude weapons. Even among the centaur warriors, not everyone is equipped with ironware. The long sticks made from special trees in the forest are extremely tough and can compete with sharp swords, but the crowd is not afraid to approach. Firstly, they have begun to get used to the presence of these dragons beloved. Not only do these humans need to strictly adhere to the rules set by the dragons, but the existence of these beloveds also needs to abide by rules. Moreover, these monsters are often subjected to stricter constraints than these humans due to their inherently evil nature and some inherent chaos. Perhaps in the eyes of the dragons, these lives are all the same and equal, just subjects ruled by the dragons, differing only in closeness and trustworthiness. Secondly, the humans gathering around are almost always clever individuals, who eagerly attend whenever new regulations or rules are announced. These proclamations represent the will of the dragons and can be considered as some form of governance policy by the giant dragon lord over the lands, where those with sharp senses can easily find ample business opportunities under these new rules. Sometimes, being a step ahead gives one an edge. Thus, most of those gathering around are the stewards sent by pioneer nobles and the heads of major mercantile groups, as these individuals have a keen sense for profit. The dragons beloved formed a circle around the most powerful warrior of the centaur tribe, and only then did the mighty warrior unfold the thick sheepskin notice, but the centaur warrior suddenly froze, having forgotten he couldn't read. "Damn it, I forgot to bring along that female slave of Lord Karon, who always helped me read the announcements before." The centaur warrior Karon scratched his head and looked around his subordinates, asking, "Is there anyone who can read? Step forward, and once you've read this announcement, I'll inform Lord Das of your credit." The monsters surrounding them stared at each other cluelessly. There was no school or place for knowledge dissemination in the wasteland. Among these monsters, being able to understand and learn the common language was already considered a rare talent. Expecting them to learn to read and write was unthinkable. Not every race can have the inheritance and innate knowledge of dragons. "Damn it!" Karon exclaimed angrily with words he learned from humans. "How can we properly manage the land for Lord Dragon with you pests?" The frustrated centaur warrior supported his front hooves on the ground and kicked with his sturdy hind legs, sending one of his subordinates flying into the crowd, knocking over several spectators. Karon scratched his head and suddenly thought of a solution. He patted his own head, feeling proud of his cleverness. The centaur pulled out a gold coin from the pocket around his waist, considered it inappropriate, then replaced it with a silver coin. Before taking it out of the pocket, he hesitated again and finally pulled out a few copper coins. Karon held several copper coins in his large palm and shouted to the onlooking residents, "Is there anyone among you who can read? As long as you can help me read this announcement, these copper coins will be yours. But there can't be any mistakes, or else I won't pay," the centaur said sternly. Despite being just a few copper coins, the conditions were so simple that many residents raised their hands, signaling they could help, tempted by the lure of money. Karon stared for a while and selected an old man with a gap in his front teeth, as he'd heard that the longer these humans lived, the more knowledge they possessed. "Hey, you," the old man, Karon pointed to the chosen human and said. The old man, realizing he was chosen, grinned, revealing his missing teeth. He was the same elder who had guided Rose and Heer earlier. The old man took the thick sheepskin scroll from Chiron's hand and squinted his eyes to read aloud. According to the governance methods agreed upon by Blue Dragon Das and Axi, the main points of this proclamation included several aspects. On one hand, the start of levying appropriate taxes on all goods transactions and circulation, rather than the previous practice of only charging a certain percentage of partnership fees, as well as related market rental taxes. The Dragon Group no longer needs to concede related interests as they begin governing their territory like a lord. Of course, to promote the town's development, for now, the Dragon Group has no plans to levy tariffs. Source: webnovel.com, updated by novlov.com. Chapter 82-35, How can the territory be managed well? Part 2. Chapter 82, Chapter 35, How can the territory be managed well? Part 2. Furthermore, they have placed restrictions on trading certain goods, such as spices that are scarce inland and even more valuable than gold. These valuable trade items are subject to tax based on a certain percentage of the transaction amount. Additionally, the gold mining resources cannot be freely exploited. Mining can only commence with the approval and consent of the Dragon Group, essentially converting mining development into a Dragon Group monopoly, allowing only designated merchants and partners to extract these resources. The salt lakes and salt mines on the prairie are also prohibited from random excavation, now guarded by the Dragon Group's beloved, preventing anyone from approaching indiscriminately. This indicates that the Dragon Group's territorial planning is gradually moving towards proper development, as opposed to the previous primitive exploitation. However, this does not pose a challenge for the pioneers, since they were previously engaged in what amounted to dealing without any long-term costs, and now they only need to submit taxes that are far lower than those set by the noble lords. Regardless, the will of the Dragon Group on this land is supreme, and they do not resent it. It's only unfortunate for many that they can no longer make profits recklessly like before. Conversely, those nobles and mages who originally had cooperative relationships with the Dragon Group are even more delighted. They know better than anyone how profitable exclusive licenses can be. Almost all the noble merchants present were eagerly preparing, contemplating how to win over the giant dragons and acquire this right from the giant dragon lord. However, the subsequent order proclamation further stirred the crowd, as Dragon Group declared tax exemption for grain transactions and encouraged humans to settle on this land. These giant dragons will recognize the rights of humans living on this land, and regardless of their initial status upon arriving here, they will become free people after gaining freedom. Every additional person brought to this land will earn a fixed reward, with greater numbers reaping more substantial rewards. Those possessing specific skills, such as blacksmiths, carpenters, craftsmen specializing in agriculture, and others will receive double the rewards. Such understated hints are as good as direct suggestions to these people, implying their ships can sail back fully loaded from this golden land and from the regions governed by human nations. This effectively encourages everyone to become population-stealing marauders, bringing joy to those nobles who can convert the flow of people and scattered villages in their lands into abundant gold. Even more enticing for other ordinary adventurers is the promise from the dragon group that everyone is allowed to cultivate land here, with the cultivated land belonging to the cultivators, exempt from taxes for 10 years. Only after 10 years will they need to pay a certain percentage of tax, and even this percentage will be lower than that set by other noble lords. A condition impossible for others to offer but guaranteed here in the largely wild giant dragon territory. And they encourage humans and other races to settle here, promising them the normal status and power they deserve. Not only that, those with outstanding talents can even become officials within the giant dragon territory. Moreover, becoming a resident of the giant dragon territory grants exemption from military service for 3 generations, meaning the territory will not conscript these residents actively for 3 generations, and will even assist them in building houses proactively. For the giant dragons, while these conditions are quite generous, they actually harm their interests little, as the endless forests were already lying idle, urgently needing population development and utilization. Yet even the nobles and mages find these conditions tempting. They have already begun stepping out of their homes and standing on balconies to observe the next moves. Although they have large families and assets, every family has some lesser sons and distant relatives who could pursue opportunities here rather than languishing within the family. It's foreseen that as the domination by the giant dragons gradually proceeds on the right track, related systems will need to be gradually perfected. This means not only amassing wealth on this land but perhaps also becoming an official in this gradually emerging giant dragon kingdom. The gradually heated atmosphere in the crowd almost drowned out the voice of the elderly announcer, until Karon sent his men several times to stop this, allowing the announcement to proceed. But Mage Raise's thoughts had already drifted to the distance, deciding to return and discuss carefully with his adventurer team, as the current intentions of the giant dragon lords are to build a unique giant dragon kingdom, not like other 5-colored dragons who choose to form a monster kingdom. Opportunity and danger coexist. People with keen insight often seize the sliver of opportunity within danger, and Mage Raise thinks he might gamble boldly once and become one of those with high foresight. Perhaps he can manage great achievements and not merely remain a wandering civilian mage. Perhaps, eventually, he can become a founder of a family. He might even own a mage tower one day, filling his youthful mage heart with dreams. Leaving aside the town's bustling crowd discussions and thoughts, under the consultation of Blue Dragon Das and Axie, the giant dragon territory finally took a crucial step, progressing from its previous barbaric and chaotic development to setting foot on a territory's proper path. Due to innate distrust of 5-color dragons, not many humans may yet choose to come to this land, but once those sold by the nobles settle down here, the truth will be evident. This will require time. Time, compared to short-lived species, always stands by the side of the dragons. With the spread of the newly announced laws from the giant dragon lords, the residents in the town began to conceive unique thoughts. In Golden Harbor Town, originally temporarily gathered for adventure and gold seeking, the residents came here for their interests. If the land's rulers truly govern like the announced laws declare, a significant portion of these people begin to contemplate long-term habitation here. And in Icaria world, there are countless thriving towns formed by gold seeking, adventure, or certain trade. On the distant southern continent, there are examples of thriving towns from barren lands due to harbor trade. For instance, the famous Blackstone Trade Harbor, known for a special local spice and possessing excellent navigation routes and naturally suitable harbor for ships, gradually attracted maritime trade groups. It evolved from a small village to today's major sea harbor base for large trading groups, especially the number one maritime group in the southern continent, the Blackstone Trading Group, which operates almost all industries locally, thus named Blackstone Port. Golden Harbor Town embodies all these key traits, even though slightly farther from human nations. The secure trade routes have long been explored thoroughly. The only worry for these people is that the reigning rulers are the evil five-colored giant dragons. Although the prior good cooperation has established initial trust, when considering their long-term future, everyone instinctively refers to their fixed impressions, which require time to slowly change. According to Blue Dragon DOS's thinking, this situation should be broken by the nobles and trading groups leading the way. Despite the inherent background leading to their success, when facing opportunities, these merchants and nobles can be more fearless than the brave adventurers. Because these individuals, educated due to their good background, possess insights not found in ordinary people, and inherently have the propensity for significant gambles, otherwise they would not attain their current position and power. More critically, in the face of sufficient interest, these individuals are capable of anything. They only fear lack of profits or insufficient interests. Source: webnovel.com, updated by novlove.com. Chapter 83-36, Monster in the Sea. Chapter 83, Chapter 36, Monster in the Sea. The coastline of Golden Harbor Town stretches for over 20 miles, with its natural harbor boasting deep docking water, the shallowest part being about 15 meters, while the deepest reaches nearly 40 meters. As the town gradually expanded, the dock also received extensions. Nowadays, even the multi-masted sailing ships constructed by the southern countries can easily dock at the harbor pier. Currently, the port is filled with various multi-masted sailing ships, single-masted square-rigged ships, and even some galley ships, all gently swaying amidst the calm sea water. Under the shroud of night, Golden Harbor Town remains brilliantly lit, and these adventurers seem to have endless energy. No matter how tiring their day was in the endless forests and vast plains, they still enthusiastically gather in taverns at night to talk boldly. Many adventurers, under the guise of night, sneak into the ladies' buildings with high-hanging lanterns, and it isn't long before the especially refined residences emit high-pitched voices like a noble band's male and female duet. Mist gradually spreads over the depths of the sea, drifting towards the coast under the sea breeze, enveloping the ships docked in the harbor and parts of the town. The watchful sailors on these ships have already grown accustomed to this scene and aren't surprised. A young sailor crawled out of his companion's bunk, shuffled into his shoes, and put on waterproof and warm clothing. Enduring the unpleasant mix of dampness from the ship bottom seeping into the cabin, soaking wood, garbage, food, and cargo, along with the stench of moisture, body odor, and mildew, he lit the mast lamp at the bow to prevent any accidents. Yet he didn't notice, amidst the thickening mist, an ugly monster quietly emerging from the sea in the distance. A pair of venomous and cruel eyes wandered around in the mist, quietly observing this seemingly sleepless town. This creature, from head to toe, measured about 2 to 3 meters long, with a slender physique. It bore deep green skin covered in grid-like patterns, with sections occasionally sprouting fine scales. Its head was distinct, with developed jaws and sharp teeth, limbs with webbed feet, and small sail-like dorsal fins growing on its head, neck, and the sides of its forearms, alongside a pair of fish-like eyes. The creature's tail bore a pair of strong fin structures, and its sharp claws clutched a trident adorned with coral and seaweed. This was the Shawa fishman, referred to by coastal human residents as a sea demon. These creatures typically inhabit sea caves or deep-sea trenches. They love hunting and attacking any creature they encounter, though trading is also in their nature. They prefer plundering coastal settlements and merchant ships to obtain what they desire, displaying a highly predatory and intelligent fish-like race. However, since those bronze dragons, who consider themselves just and good and never feed on intelligent creatures, relish the taste of these creatures, often preying on them, they do not recognize these Shawa fishmen as intelligent beings. Unlike the blue dragons among the five-color dragons, who not only acknowledge these Shuwa fishmen as intelligent beings but are even more decisive in devouring them than the bronze dragons. This Shuwa fishman was a member of a fishman tribe living in a deep-sea trench far from this sea area. Previously, these Shuwa fishmen occasionally patrolled this sea area without paying it any heed because they knew this place was an ogre settlement. Those foolish ogres were poor yet powerful, making them unworthy of Shuwa fishmen's attacks and plunder. Besides, the scarce passing merchant ships had failed to capture the Shuwa fishmen's attention. But recently, this sea area seemed to get increasingly lively with more humans and merchant ships passing by and docking here, catching the eye of a creature patrolling this sea area, prompting him to begin covert probes. In the eyes of these Shuwa fishmen, humans appear extremely weak and easily bullied, so after observing for some time, this Shuwa fishman submerged into the sea, drawing nearer to the sailors on the ship. The young sailor, still unaware of the impending danger, glanced enviously towards the bustling town on shore upon lighting the ship's mast lamp. Muttering to himself, "Facing men's backsides all day, I'm about to forget the delightful scent of those ladies, damn it." Suddenly he heard a loud water-breaking sound, hurriedly turning towards the source of the noise, vaguely spotting a green monster leaping out of the water within the mist, unleashing a powerful jet of water towards him. The yell forming in the sailor's mouth hadn't yet emerged, when he was struck square in the face by the powerful water jet. All he felt was darkness before his eyes. A sharp trident had already penetrated his body with tremendous force, and the sailor feebly collapsed onto the deck. Thump! The Shuwa fishman grabbed the ship's side, leaping onto the deck without lingering, dragging the unconscious sailor and then jumping back into the sea. He planned to report to the fishman nobility and priestesses ruling the tribe, hoping to receive a substantial reward. Make way, make way! In the water, where they possess several times the strength compared to land, the Shuwa fishman effortlessly dragged the human body with one claw into the giant cave in the sea trench, driving away other fishmen approaching due to the scent of blood and flesh. Upon entering this deep and vast cave, he ignored the Shuwa fishman guards eyeing the human fiercely, bypassing them directly, heading towards the upper layer of the cave. The upper layer of the cave contained a spacious area, appearing somewhat lustrous under the reflection of various underwater corals and gemstones. The cave ceiling and walls had strange and grim murals drawn with especial grease. Most of these murals depicted fierce sharks battling various bizarre deep-sea monsters, representing the deity worshipped by these Shuwa fishmen, shark god Sikla. Beneath these murals sat a tall, intimidating, and ugly male fishman, surrounded by several female fishmen, who were busy with the propagation of their species. This was the priestess among the Shuwa fishmen and the fishman baron ruling this tribe. The patrolling fishmen dared not look any longer, as the priestesses, despite being playthings of the fishman baron of the fishman tribes, wielded huge influence and held high status due to their qualification to channel the divine power of shark god Sikla within the Shuwa fishman race. "Baron, I bring good news." Throwing the already pale and bloated human to the ground, the patrolling fishman knelt, his fish eyes fixed on the ground beneath, not daring to look up. Busy with the priestess lay the fishman baron, flexing his hideous body, turning to the intruding patrolling fishman with a chillingly sharp grin, saying, "This news had better satisfy me." Source: webnovel.com, updated by novlov.com. Chapter 84-37, The Red Dragon's Experiment. Chapter 84, Chapter 37, The Red Dragon's Experiment. The mountain peak where the Red Dragon resided was now constantly shrouded in steaming hot winds. Coupled with the scorching summer heat, the air here seemed distorted, with only a faint glimpse of the magma lakes dancing within the heat. Even the young giant dragons were reluctant to approach this mountain peak. Although the strong bodies of the giant dragons would not be harmed, they all disliked such a high-temperature environment. However, the element storms and the hot wind enveloping the mountain peak today seemed to have dissipated considerably, with the visibility significantly improved compared to usual. Under the steamy haze, one could vaguely see Karon's body soaking in the scorching, corrosive magma. This corrosive magma could not corrode the red dragon's hard scales, even if the red dragon spent all day soaking in the magma lakes. The scales of the young red dragon were enough to withstand the slashes of ordinary ironware, let alone now that the red dragon had grown into a young dragon. The protection and tenacity of the scales had been greatly enhanced, and the adaptability and resistance to the fire element had been strengthened to a terrifying extent. The magma did not even make the red dragon's skin feel a burning sensation, and it cleaned the scales thoroughly, washing through some crevices that were difficult for the red dragon to clean himself. However, as Karon soaked longer in this magma pool, the magma absorbed by his body gradually solidified on his body. His body began to be covered with a thin, solidified layer of magma stones, similar to wild boars in the forest rolling in mud ponds. At some point, the heat sufficient to obscure the view had dissipated, and the mountain top returned to calm. Bathed in the strong scent of sulfur, the red dragon comfortably opened his eyes, his enormous body rising from the magma lake. Karon felt slight stiffness in his body, looked down, and saw that large areas of his body were wrapped in a semi-solidified stony shell. Especially the solidified magma, which was a strange dark red color, evoked some unpleasant memories for him. Tisk! Karon stirred the magic power within his body, shattering the solidified magma on his wings, and then, like a swan taking off from the water, he flapped his wings and flew to the edge of the magma lake. No wonder those giant dragons can sleep for decades once they find a nest they like. This feeling is just too comfortable. Karon shook off the outer layer of magma from his body like a flying bird shaking its feathers, and these dark red layers fell to the ground in small pieces. Feeling the slight constraint on his body's surface had disappeared, Karon folded his wings and began to move around the mountain top. After this period of catching up on sleep and soaking in ample magic power, Karon's body had grown again, reaching a length of 13 meters. To tell the truth, Karon really liked the feeling of growing just by lying down and sleeping, but he knew that relying solely on natural growth from deep sleep was not enough to establish a footing in this dangerous world. Even young giant dragons and adult evil dragons could be slaughtered for various reasons, let alone Karon, who was still just a young dragon. Moreover, after conversing with the mage, it sparked an urgent need within him to grow stronger. However, after learning from his last lesson, the red dragon and the other young dragons now understood the importance of cautious development. Fortunately, after talking with Mage Lapuz, he roughly knew which main direction he should take in the future. Karon's increasingly massive body sat down, like another red hill standing on the mountaintop. He began to retrieve the knowledge of magic through his sub-brain, lines of information passing through his eyes, and one by one, the magic models analyzed and simulated by the sub-brain started to form, tailored specifically for Karon. The spiritual light of magic began to surge on Karon's red claws. An acid missile was formed under Karon's will, then shot towards the ground, leaving a shallow mark on the scorched earth, and corroding it with a light sizzling sound. This was the effect of the magic trick's acid splash. Magic radiance continuously surged on Karon's hands, and 4 lanterns emitting a dim light appeared around him. This was the dancing light skill. Yet a burst of illusory sound echoed around, the volume equivalent to 5 or 6 ordinary people. This was the illusionary sound skill. However, due to Karon's excellent magic resistance, this trick, which was supposed to affect himself, had no practical effect. It was just determined by Karon according to the magical knowledge taught by Mage Lapuz. Then, Karon continued to experiment with several magic tricks, including the secret rune, which wasn't much different from the giant dragon's innate item positioning skill, and the low-level mage's beloved trick Mage's Hand, among others. The Mage's Hand released by common mages could probably only move objects weighing 5 pounds, but in Karon's claws, this simple trick Mage's Hand could move objects weighing over 100 pounds. Moreover, it was used flexibly enough to flip and move around with Karon's will, not just simply supporting weight. This was not only credited to the giant dragon's outstanding magical talent but also to the sub-brain's tailored modifications for the red dragon based on individual differences. The sub-brain collected notes and insights left by mages who had used this spell before and then deduced more suitable spell casting methods and magic power routes for Karon. Source: webnovel.com, updated by novlove.com. Chapter 85-37, Red Dragon's Experiment, Part 2. Chapter 85, Chapter 37, Red Dragon's Experiment, Part 2. With sufficient knowledge as a reference, the sub-brain, after calculating and analyzing, made slight adjustments to some of the spell models of these tricks. From Karon's experimental results, the effects unexpectedly satisfied the dragon. Furthermore, through these spell tests, Karon concluded that the magic power and spiritual power consumed by these tricks placed no burden on him, and he could almost continuously cast these low-level tricks. As long as his magic power could sustain the consumption of these tricks, although the consumption of these tricks on magic power was far behind the pace at which the giant dragon itself absorbs magic power. However, these tricks were not very useful for the current giant dragon, except that the mage's hand intrigued the dragon. But then Karon was struck by a doubt. When he cast magic tricks using the magic knowledge taught by Lapuz, he did not feel he had touched the legendary magic net. It's important to know that although the spell Karon just cast was a low-level trick, unlike the dragon's innate spell casting, which is more akin to a warlock's spell casting, not touching the magic net is quite normal. However, no matter how low-level the spell is, it requires touching native magic. In some of Karon's previous life's understandings, touching native magic requires locking onto it through the magic net. Karon, utilizing his sub-brain to summon memories embedded in his brain, recalled the concept of the magic net. In worlds within the multi-cosmos, they are almost all places filled with magic, where every stone, every stream, every living thing, and even the air itself contains undeveloped potential energy. This potential energy is the raw material of creation, belonging to native magic. Mere mortals cannot directly utilize this energy but can use a structure of weaving magic energy as a bridge to connect the caster's consciousness with the raw material of native magic. This bridge is called the magic net by casters. Without the magic net, native magic would be difficult for the caster's consciousness to lock onto, resulting in an inability to touch it. But during Karon's process of casting magic, he did not sense this bridge, which acts as an intermediary for casters. It seems he can directly touch that native magic power. Karon wondered if it was because the spell he cast was too low-level that he didn't clearly sense the existence of the magic net. Thus, with magic power surging in his hands, he planned to cast a slightly more advanced spell. Under Karon's will, a blazing magic ball gathered magic power, emitting rolling heat and taking shape between his claws. It was then thrown by Karon and, guided by his will, crashed into a boulder. Boom! The fireball whirled and struck the rock, immediately exploding, shattering the newly formed, fragile rock into pieces. This was a blazing magic ball, a formal spell, no longer a low-level trick. Yet he still did not sense the presence of the magic net. Karon raised his paw, scratching his chin in thought, unsure if the magic knowledge taught by Mage Lapuz was flawed, or if there was something wrong with himself. The magic knowledge taught by Mage Lapuz seemed overly comprehensive, which also raised suspicions about the mage. But considering that his body was already mixed with abundant heart energy, he found it difficult to conclude. But since this concerned his secret, he couldn't possibly consult the mage. Perhaps it is this world that has problems, Karon thought, unconsciously scratching sparks from his hard scales with his sharp claws. But this issue was quickly thrown to the back of Karon's mind. Although he eagerly engaged with this magical knowledge, his initial goal was merely to enhance his strength. And after conversing with Mage Lapuz, his attitude toward magic knowledge is now to observe a true corner of the world from a mage's perspective and gain more knowledge about the real world. The paths of dragons and mages differ. Although they generally align in the grand direction, this doesn't mean Karon will become a giant dragon mage. Compared to magic, dragons prefer using their bodies and claws to destroy enemies, with their innate dragon breath being more potent than much magic. Karon, too, is influenced by this belief, especially since he is a red dragon who cherishes physical might. However, unlike other dragons of his race, Karon believes that the power of magic is also a highly effective and sufficiently formidable means. Whether in destroying enemies or in other aspects, he is therefore also willing to accept magic knowledge. Although the process of learning magic can be quite tedious, Karon still takes pleasure in it. But, in what way can I learn more about the true side of the world? Karon recalled the mage's words. The more one understands the true side of the world, the more comprehensively one constructs a unique understanding of the world, making one stronger on future paths. Memories echoed in Karon's heart, fiery flames flickering in his eyes, as he opened his sense of the limits. In his vertical pupils, like red torrents of lava surging, the surrounding world transformed into another scene. The flow of elements was clearly visible to him: yellow earth, flowing green wind, blue water patterns, red flames, and green life, all kinds of pure yet mixed elements. Within the range of his triggered domain of extreme awareness, the traces of various elements intertwining and flowing appeared like patterns in his palm. Source: webnovel.com, updated by novlove.com. Chapter 86-37, Red Dragons Experiment _3. Chapter 86, Chapter 37, Red Dragons Experiment _3. As a talent holder with an affinity for related elements, a giant dragon can control and command these flowing elements through their will and spirit. When these elements do not resist, these controllers can use them to unleash terrifying and tremendous power in the real world. Now, Karon, with his talent for controlling flames, earth, and metal, can touch these elements and use them to create boundless force in the real world. More importantly, this perception of reality is akin to granting Karon the ability to observe the true nature of the world from another perspective, with his perception being more like a kind of true vision. In this domain of extreme perception and true visual field, he can see through both magic-induced and non-magic-induced darkness, as well as some invisible creatures and objects, and can detect visual illusions through true vision. If someone uses mid and low-tier skills to achieve invisibility, it would be fully exposed in Karon's true vision, unless the stealth spell reaches a master level or possesses unique talent. Like the invisibility ability Riven naturally possesses as a magic fairy, although Karon cannot directly see through the little elves in their invisible state, he can still find some trace patterns. If this ability is further enhanced, he might even be able to directly see through the true forms of shape-shifting creatures or those using magic for transformation. The true forms concealed by transformation skills would also be seen through by Karon, especially those metal dragons that particularly love using transformation skills. And the silver dragons, these giant dragons without warrior ethics, especially love transforming into elves or human forms to travel the world. Some giant dragons are particularly keen on adventuring with partners from other races, then transforming into a giant dragon to save the team amidst danger, showing off heroism in front of others. And afterward, even if there are no minstrels in the party, these giant dragons will actively tell storytellers who like spreading tales, to make their stories of righteous partnership known. Dragons inherently love vanity and shamelessly disregard their dragon face, and many metal dragons' good names are spread this way. If not for the 5-color dragons being too chaotic and evil, maybe they could also use this method to change their reputation. However, speaking of which, based on what Karon knows, not many creatures are born with various kinds of special perceptions. For instance, blind vision, dark vision, vibration perception, etc., these special perceptions should also touch upon the true aspect of the world in certain ways. It seems necessary to establish a relatively objective observation model for the real world, to fully understand the world's knowledge, to better construct one's unique understanding of the world's reality. Karon lay on the ground, after soaking in the lava for a long time. He now especially enjoys the feeling of the breeze blowing, resting his thorn-covered cheek on his paw. Or the understanding of the world isn't limited to the aspect of physical reality, in terms of thought, or philosophy, it can also help construct a unique understanding of the world. But even if it's a material worldview, it can be divided into the macroscopic world and the microscopic world, and if you delve deeper, it would take a lifetime to fully grasp this knowledge. The red dragon's long tail started to swing in boredom, and under the red dragon's mighty power, even a common tail swing appeared particularly intimidating, smashing the rocks dried and solidified by lava overflow into powder. And other ways of viewing the world, such as earth, water, wind, and fire, void consciousness, the 5 elements, 5 energies, etc., how can these be summarized into one's understanding then? The red dragon's paw supporting its chin uncontrollably scratched its head. Scenes happening multiple times to Blue Dragon DOS are now being recreated in the red dragon, and Karon began to feel a kind of remorse akin to a struggling student, a realization of if only back then rising in his mind. Source: webnovel.com, updated by novlove.com. Chapter 87-38, Little Legend. Chapter 87, Chapter 38, Little Legend. Karon's dragon claw couldn't help itself and scratched vigorously on his own head a few times, finally feeling the swelling in his head calming down as if influenced by some ritual. Forget it, I'm still far from that step anyway, and unlike those mages who can only rely on magic knowledge, I am a giant dragon constantly growing at every moment. Karon stood up, feeling the gains from absorbing the magic power over this period of time, 2 kinds of power resembling his ancestral bloodline awakening field, all things turned to ash faintly emerged in his lineage. Those were the powers of earth and metal, the inherent bloodline potential all red dragons possessed. However, not every red dragon can activate these 2 talents like Karon. Usually, a red dragon might have to pass the limits of life and become an ancient red dragon to start awakening such potential. Under the super limit state growth talent, Karon gained much more than he imagined, like the unique flame domain that only a mature red dragon might have a chance to possess. Perhaps when these 2 powers are born, I could meet opponents by first cloaking them with 3 layers of domains during battles, and only those who withstand it would have the right to face me head-on, and I might become a little legend, Karon thought delightedly. With this power growth, the red dragon practically wouldn't care about group attacks from low-level opponents, only those stronger than him could challenge and break through his boundaries. If this kind of power continues to grow, it might not be impossible for Karon to destroy a nation single-handedly, as long as he can bide his time and grow strong enough. However, I seem to lack some strong escape methods. Although my full-speed flight is much faster than other giant dragons, I could still encounter opponents much stronger than me. While in his dragon nest, his safety was somewhat assured, and the updated weaponry of the dragon's beloveds could inflict significant damage. United attacks could even teach other young red dragons a lesson. But Karon often ventures outside the dragon nest or ends up alone. He can't always bring all dragons and beloveds with him wherever he goes. Karon wrinkled the fine scales on his brow, pondering what kind of escape method would be reliable for slipping away smoothly when outmatched. Karon's consciousness sank into his sea of spirit. Now that he had returned to these lands and reclaimed dominion, the heart energy power provided by the dragon group beloveds under his command gradually increased. Even the adventurers from the human camps, influenced and acknowledging Karon's dominion over this area, more or less contributed some heart energy power. Also, the ferocious ones subdued by the dragon group occasionally fed some weak heart power back to Karon. The accumulated heart energy power was almost sufficient for Karon to undergo another enhancement. Crack! Karon tossed a chunk of metal retrieved from the magma lake into his fang-filled maw, gently chewing it into pieces and swallowing it into his gut. The metal was quickly decomposed by the giant dragon's stomach acid, turning into tiny strands of energy absorbed by the dragon. Regular consumption of metal greatly benefits a dragon's growth, not only hardening its scales and skin for better defense but also accelerating growth when consuming metals with similar attributes. For instance, the white dragons dwelling in polar glaciers often consume the special ice crystal stones growing in glacier crevices, enhancing the power of their breath. However, consuming metal has little short-term effect on dragons and requires prolonged consumption for substantial benefits. Typically, only a lord dragon like Karon could afford such cost. Many five-color dragons scraping by on dirt and bark wouldn't consider rare metals and stones as food upon discovery but as treasures to decorate their pitiable treasure vaults even a thief would pity. Now, with Karon having a large estate, the territory contains numerous ore veins, though no large magical ore veins were found. The personnel for extracting those rare metal ores are insufficient. Or rather, there aren't enough skilled in smelting ores. The kobold beloveds, adept at mining ores, produce tons of rare ores each month for Karon and the dragon group. Unfortunately, these beloveds rely on innate talent for sustenance and lack the skill in refining and purifying ores. I guess I should have DOS pay attention to this area, and also a commercial group. Dragons need their own commercial groups, or at least those serving dragons, otherwise trading many resources would be inconvenient and unlikely to match our desires. Karon mused over the territory issue. Karon raised his head, perceiving invisible ripples in the air. However, the visitor hadn't entered the alert range of the dreamlike magic and thus didn't reveal themselves. Sniff sniff, Karon's nose twitched, exposing long, pale white fangs as his mouth opened, sending a gentle dragon fire towards a point in the air. Soon, the air wave revealed itself, and a pick elf clad in a little green petal skirt with two sprouting flower buds atop her head appeared within the wave. Riven, with her little hands on her slender waist and her chest puffed out, glared fiercely at the stealthily grinning red dragon, saying, "Stupid Karon, you almost burned your one and only pick elf friend to death. No worries, there are plenty more pick elves in the forest, and I bet they're all eager to volunteer and befriend a powerful dragon like me." Karon teased the pick elf intentionally. He found the hopping mad little elf quite amusing, perhaps a mischievous trait inherited from dragons influenced him. Humph, humph, humph. Pick elf Riven knew Karon deliberately misfired his dragon breath, yet his words still irked her slightly. So Riven crossed her arms and swayed before Karon, her tiny mouth almost pouting skyward. Karon was almost dizzy from the elf's rapidly fluttering wings before his eyes. He had to shake his head and ask, "Why are you here first thing when I just woke up? You aren't coming daily, are you?" The pick elf's swaying figure froze midair. She stammered slightly, "Just not, only because it's too boring, always hearing those pick elves brag about which new friends they made." Riven's eyes twinkled, and she stopped stammering, holding her head high to the looming red dragon, saying, "Karon, why don't we go on an adventure? With my wit and your strength, we'll surely have a delightful adventure journey." "Who knows if you're the one boasting the most among pick elves," Karon retorted inwardly. Though his relationship with the little elf was close as good friends, her words still didn't sway his thoughts. Moreover, the giant dragon territory remained stable partly because the dragons kept relatively quietly maintaining their original territorial scale, including ogre and centaur tribe domains. Though expanding towards the prairies, they chose areas devoid of strong tribes and monsters to expand into. If the dragon group continued expanding recklessly, it would attract hostility and attention from surrounding creatures and monsters. Back when the dragon group was merely subduing beloveds and preparing to expand, the ogres, who constantly monitored the dragons, preemptively launched attacks on them. Let alone if the dragons went on a full offensive, it might attract a surrounding monster siege on the territory. Karon already understood that in this wild land, and perhaps the entire world, every race and monster had their fixed survival and activity ranges. If you did not actively reach out, everyone could maintain a peaceful state. All inhabited lands must be secured through blood and fire to establish a foothold. These young dragons' power was still far from strong and required patiently lying low and developing for some time. Venturing out during this period would indeed be a foolish choice, but Karon didn't blame the little elf. Pick elves, at times, would take many risks in pursuit of joy and fun. In Karon's eyes, these elves were rather chaotic. The red dragon decisively shook his head. "The outside world is still too dangerous for me, I must stay quietly within my territory to grow. However, if boredom is a problem, I know many interesting little games." Source: webnovel.com, updated by novlove.com. Chapter 88 to 39, Can a Dragon Even Cheat? Chapter 88, Chapter 39, Can a Dragon Even Cheat? What's the little game? Tell me, the Pick Elf jumped up in the air. These magical creatures are naturally fond of seeking joy and enjoying fun. Occasionally, some little elves in the wilderness and forest would, for their mischievous pleasure, specifically prank travelers and other creatures who accidentally enter their territory, leaving behind various bizarre rumors and stories about forest witches. It can be said a significant portion of the witch's bad reputation is spread by these naughty Pick Elves. Thus, the naturally game-loving Riven's face was now full of anticipation. Wait here, I'll make some toys for you. Karon turned around and jumped into the steaming magma lake. He started searching for special stones floating in the magma, with black and white stones as his main targets, planning to craft a set of Go, as a puzzle game, to entertain during leisurely moments. However, in the volcano, black stones are easy to find, resembling obsidian, smooth and sturdy, floating and sinking in the magma. Karon quickly collected a sufficient amount. But it was difficult to find an equivalent quantity of white stones to match these black ones, so Karon changed his target, diving into volcanic caves to excavate red agate stones to replace the white stones. Now in the volcano, red agate stones are the most abundant. Then Karon used his dragon claw, sharper than ironware, to shape these stones, which glow like gemstones, into individual game pieces, and sliced down a large piece from the rock beneath him to serve as the game board and containers. Finally, he used his dragon claw to carve out 19 intersecting lines vertically and horizontally on the board, with 361 intersections. This puzzle toy was finally complete. The impatient little elf quickly flew to the game board, her bare little feet stepping on the slightly rough surface, and shouted, "Hurry, hurry, Karon, tell me how to play this, I want to defeat you." Karon opened his dragon claw, and a transparent big hand grabbed the jumping little elf, placing her opposite him. Soon, he explained all the rules of Go to Riven. "Great, come on, let's play," Riven clapped her hands. Yet, the excited little elf soon faced a big setback. Although Karon hadn't studied Go deeply, his sub-brain was equivalent to a built-in computer, analyzing and collecting Riven's moves, then calculating the easiest and simplest way to defeat Riven and transmitting it to Karon's brain. Hence, the Pick Elf battled and lost repeatedly. Finally, after losing for the 20th time, Riven threw the game piece in her hand in frustration. "Not playing anymore, Karon, I can't beat you at the game you invented." The green dragon Antagena, who had been watching for a long time, hurried to join, shouting, "Let me try, I can defeat Karon." The young dragons who had surrounded unnoticed were eagerly watching with anticipation. Only Kleena, the female red dragon, took the opportunity of Karon's focus on the game to sneak into the magma lake for a soak, now splashing wildly, but Karon pretended not to notice, too lazy to mind. Before adulthood, whether metal dragons or five-color dragons seldom liked staying in their lairs to sleep. Upon noticing Karon was awake, they flocked here, a habit nurtured since their hatchling days, enjoying gathering together, whether to play or daydream. Karon shook his head, saying, "Too many dragons make Go not so fun. If you gather materials, I can create a game suitable for many dragons to play, which you'll surely enjoy." These young dragons happily went to collect materials. Only the white dragon Kamid grumbled, "Karon, it's too hot here, maybe we should find another place." This stems from different habits among the dragons, with white dragons preferring colder places, and due to the lair effect, the peak of the mountain belonging to the white dragon is gradually covered with frost. The nests of other young dragons have also undergone changes. The forests on the green dragon's mountain top have now become twisted, with thick vines growing. The mountain head of the blue dragon is perpetually shrouded in clouds, with occasional subtle thunderbolts and lightning erupting. The reservoir lake created by black dragon Rosani at the mountain top has turned into a poisonous swamp. And Karon's mountain top, besides the constantly erupting magma, often features wildfires burning on rocks and subplane fissures leaking a thick fire element aura. It's fortunate these dragon residences are hundreds of meters and nearly 1,000 meters above ground, otherwise, the impact would be far greater. Karon nodded, leading Kamid to fly towards other peaks. He realized maybe a special place should be constructed elsewhere for the dragon group gatherings. As future ruler of this land, he may also need to meet people outside the dragon group. It wouldn't be proper for everyone to come to his lair. He dislikes strangers entering his lair, even those loyal beloved haven't touched the peak. Moreover, meetings in one's lair aren't elegant and dignified enough, although dragons inherently possess sufficient majesty without relying on external things. It seems it's time to start building a castle for the dragon group on other peaks. We could consider leveling an entire mountain and then constructing a castle big enough on top, Karon thought with some interest. However, the beloveds of the territory not only lack the monstrous talents needed to build the castles, but they are also short-handed. The mountain range where the nests of the dragon group are located needs to be heavily defended, so most of the beloved of the dragon group are distributed there. Some beloveds also need to be assigned to manage and maintain the order in Golden Harbor Town, while the largest group, the kobolds, is diligently swinging pickaxes in the dark mines to create wealth for the dragon group. Perhaps the strong ogre slaves could prepare the stone and other materials needed for the giant dragon castle first, as building a castle for the giant dragons is indeed a big project. Moreover, Karon has already decided to build a castle for the giant dragons on the high mountain, which would involve a considerable amount of work. It seems necessary to recruit more beloveds, preferably ones skilled in castle construction, like the giant demons and beastmen, who once had their own civilizations. Unfortunately, the current territory of the dragon group cannot support more beloveds. Until the fertile forest is sufficiently developed, the dragon group will have to keep expanding if they want to recruit more beloveds. However, aimless expansion could put these young dragons in danger. One can only say that solitary five-color dragons have their own troubles, and a lord five-color dragon has the troubles of a lord. The other young dragons soon handed over the materials they collected to Karon. Karon was considering creating a special deck of cards for the giant dragons. Even though he had many more fun card games in his mind, like those favored by certain demon hunters, crafting these game props is undoubtedly a troublesome undertaking. Moreover, playing card games can help him earn a little wealth from other giant dragons. Although he is not greedy for these treasures, he is fond of seeing other dragons reluctantly part with their treasures, which would greatly satisfy Karon's twisted sense of humor as a wicked red dragon. Karon, are you cheating? How do you keep winning? I never win. Green Dragon Antagena frowned and looked at the four lanterns floating around, feeling that something was not quite right. The young dragons, experiencing this kind of game for the first time, became quite addicted, playing from daylight into the night. Although the sky was completely dark, the excellent vision of the giant dragons allowed them to see clearly in most dark environments. Still, Karon insisted on using magic to create 4 lanterns for illumination to protect the giant dragon's eyes. But the green dragon, who had continuously lost many gemstones, started to suspect that the red dragon was cheating. Green Dragon Antagena regretted agreeing to add stakes to the game when playing with Karon. The green dragon also greedily wanted to win treasures from other giant dragons but did not expect to be the one falling victim instead. Black Dragon Rosani also looked suspiciously at the red dragon's pile of gemstones and shouted, "Something's not right, Karon, are you really cheating? You're even more cunning than us black dragons." Among the 5 color dragons, black dragons and green dragons are the ones who enjoy using tricks the most, and consequently, they are also the smartest. But neither the black dragon nor the green dragon expected that the dumbest white dragon and the red dragon, who usually disliked using his brain, would keep winning while they kept losing. Black Dragon Rosani even started using the scales it shed as stakes. These scales, though they would soon lose their magic power and the dragon's aura would dissipate, remain a high-quality material for forging armor due to their sturdy protection. Moreover, dragon scales and dragon hide are among the best materials in the world for carrying magic power, making them quite valuable treasures. However, according to Karon's estimates, the most valuable dragon scales among the 5-color dragons belong to the red dragons and the blue dragons, followed by the green dragon's scales. The black dragon's scales are the least valuable, and Karon doesn't want to accept the white dragon's scales. Of course, even if he wanted to accept them, it is not feasible. There's always a rookie with beginner's luck. White Dragon Kamid is one of them. Even if Karon could peek at his cards, Kamid would still win more than he lost. White Dragon Kamid just pretended to be clumsy and watched as the Green Dragon and the Black Dragon shouted. Being among the beneficiaries, he naturally remained calm. How could that be? Are the matters of giant dragons ever considered cheating? I merely used my intelligence, you two idiots should just admit your defeat. Karon said, sticking his neck out with a proud look. Pico little elf Riven also placed her hands on her hips, acting as the red dragon's accomplice. Karon had the best relationship with her, and Riven was evidently a very loyal little elf. Though it seemed a bit shameless, for the giant dragons, this term is considered quite a compliment. Evidently, Karon has gradually showcased the nature of a giant dragon. Blue Dragon Das and Blue Dragon Axe's long bodies had already surrounded the clearing. Seeing the clamor from the Green Dragon and Black Dragon, they were suddenly invigorated, rising from their previously lazy positions. They clamored, "If you two don't want to play, step aside. Let us have a turn. We've been eager to earn some treasures from Karon." White Dragon Gomot, patrolling the sky, had lost count of how many times it flew over this mountaintop. Feigning fatigue, it approached, gathering its wings furtively as it crept near the mountaintop's clearing. Yet it was seen by the now irritated Green Dragon Antagena, who jumped down from the stone table hewn from a boulder, sudden anger flashing in its eyes as it shouted, "Gomot, are you slacking again? Get lost, the safety of the territory is your current task, return to patrolling the territory." White Dragon Gomot paused, involuntarily glancing at the smug red dragon. However, there was no way Karon would give it this chance. In his heart, there was a firm distinction between playtime and responsibilities had to be taken seriously. The red dragon waved its dragon claws, motioning for the white dragon to quickly leave. White Dragon Gomot could only stop in frustration, climbing back into the sky to continue patrolling the territory. Source: webnovel.com, updated by novlove.com. Chapter 89-40, Invading Monsters. Chapter 89, Chapter 40, Invading Monsters. The sea surface at night is always shrouded in a thin layer of mist, but tonight the mist seems particularly thick. The lanterns lit on the ships docked at the harbor appear like floating orange ghost fires swaying within the mist, exuding a terrifying atmosphere in the dimly lit harbor. Under the flickering ghost light, it seems as if monsters wielding sharp claws will burst out from the thick fog at any moment, tearing and devouring those on the shore. Hidden within the growing dense white fog, the sea water undulates with ripples not natural, and if one with excellent eyesight could see through the fog's cover, they would discover shadows lurking under the dark blue sea water. These shadows make no noise in the water, as rows of sharks with sharp teeth float and sink. These sharks, usually solitary, now gather together, forming a group of sharks. Countless sharks continue endlessly under the sea surface. These sharks do not attack each other, instead, they glide quietly towards the harbor, as if guided and controlled by some force. Behind these terrifying numbers of shark packs, a larger shadow is spreading forth. Within the shadow are countless Jawa fishmen wielding tridents adorned and wrapped with coral and seaweed. Each Jawa fishman is almost inherently capable of communicating with the sea's monstrous beasts, the sharks, possessing an innate telepathy ability with shark species. They have a special closeness with sharks, training them as attack animals. Even untrained sharks would not regard them as prey but rather as natural allies. From this perspective, all Jawa fishmen can be considered extraordinary creatures. Most of them are ordinary fishmen, but also mixed in are some male Shuwa fishmen dressed in seaweed robes and having grown a second pair of arms. These vicious ocean demons, once they grow a second pair of arms, not only have their strength significantly enhanced but also their intelligence increased, making them fearsome opponents on the battlefield. Furthermore, each Shuwa fishman with a second pair of arms can rule and lead small groups of ordinary Shuwa fishmen, skillfully commanding their subordinate Shuwa fishmen to attack in formation. At the rear are the Shuwa fishmen priests holding coral staffs. These priestesses, capable of communicating and guiding the god of sharks, Sikla, are the casters of the Shuwa fishman tribe, each possessing a considerable number of spells, including the divine guidance skill, human stasis skill, spiritual weapons, and group healing truth among others. They are the tribe's ranged support and control batteries. At the very end is the Shuwa fishman Baron, who rules over all Shuwa fishmen in this area. Its robust body manifests its excellent strength, and its forearms wield sharp weapons. The Shuwa fishman Baron quietly surfaces, its cold, cruel fish eyes watching the quiet harbor and bustling town in the distance, issuing commands in a low voice spoken in abyssal language. Attack, kill all the humans, bring the women back to the tribe, commence your pillage. Woo, woo. A blood-chilling ominous low sound that only these Shuwa fishmen can hear ripples through the seawater. This is the Shuwa fishman's hunting horn. Shadows beneath the seawater suddenly surge, as the shark group drives the water towards the quiet harbor, with the Shuwa fishmen behind them also surging forward with the undulating water. Charge, kill all these humans. Rob them of their treasures, burn down their town. Countless Shuwa fishmen sprung from the water, leaping out onto the town. Those ships docked at the harbor, where the sailors on duty routinely lit the mast lamps, now find these sailors growing more cautious. They start walking in pairs, never going anywhere alone. A rumor a couple of days ago spoke of unknown creatures taking a crew from a ship in weather like this misty night. Though these sailors are well accustomed to encountering monstrous creatures during their adventures, none of them wishes to befall any misfortune. Ha! The leading sailor yawns, adjusting the mast lamp at the ship's bow, casually chatting with the companion behind him. After the watch shift tomorrow, how about we go into town and find some ladies to unwind? I feel like my tool is about to rust and needs some lubricant. But the sailor receives no reply from his companion. Bewildered, he turns to find his companion with wide eyes staring at the sea, where turbulent waters and swirling monsters loom. Whoosh! Two tridents hurled from the ugly creatures that leap from the sea, piercing through the sailor's body, pinning him to the deck. Ugh! Two cries of shock barely escape the sailors' mouths before they transform into two warm corpses. The Shuwa fishmen leap onto the large ships docked at the harbor, beginning a clean sweep of the humans on board. Many more Shuwa fishmen, under the command of the Shuwa fishman Baron, bypass the ships, landing on the coast and advancing toward the town. The sea also churns, attempting to cover the coastal ground, turning land into the primary battleground for the Shuwa fishmen. The mist, catalyzed by Shuwa fishman priestesses' spells, accelerates its spread over the entire town, gradually enveloping it. The sailors stationed in the harbor are systematically eradicated by Shuwa fishmen under the fog's cover, collapsing into pools of blood before they have time to resist, the bloody scent carried by the briny sea breeze wafting from the docked ships throughout the harbor. Countless Shuwa fishmen leap from the sea, rushing onto the town's port, heading towards the townsfolk yet unaware, with cries of shock and pain starting to spread. Hey, what's that? A few adventurers stepping drunkenly out of a remote tavern, still dazed and unaware of the increasingly dense fog, and dismissing the screams and sounds of fighting as nighttime ruckus. But suddenly shadows leap from the fog, dragging the adventurers on the street into the mist, followed by splattering blood staining the town's ground. The adventurers, frightened awake, saw through the fog a few meters away endless green monsters emerging, screeching as they brandished tridents, charging. Monsters, green monsters are invading. Those are Shuwa fishmen, they're raiding the town. The adventurers finally discern the monster's form, but dare not return through the thick fog to their lodgings and instead rush into the tavern, shouting. These adventurers stagger in and shout loudly, momentarily quelling the tavern's raucous atmosphere. What? Monsters attacking the town? Don't they know this is under the giant dragon's domain? Damn it, everyone be cautious, there might be other creatures unafraid of these young dragons. Damn it, grab your weapons, monsters are here. Though incredulous, the seasoned adventurers who survived through many adventures are prudent enough to rise, draw their weapons, and shout. Quick, shut the tavern doors, the fog outside is too thick, don't rush out recklessly without understanding the situation. We have enough people here to rely on the tavern for defense, and those giant dragons and their beloved wouldn't allow their territory to be attacked. As long as we hold out for some time, we'll be rescued. An experienced adventurer immediately calls out, others echoing, as two adventurers near the door rush to close it. Thud, thud, thud. Just as these two adventurers seal the tavern's doors with timber bars, the door comes under attack, the sound of sharp objects striking the wood echoing through. Bam, bam, bam. The banging sounds immediately follow, the adventurers backing away, hands numb from the impact, drawing their long swords as they nervously watch the door under relentless assault. Source: webnovel.com, updated by novlove.com. Chapter 90-41, Night of Slaughter. Chapter 90, Chapter 41, Night of Slaughter. The small town finally descended into chaos, with the night's noises turning into shouts and the clash of weapons, alerting the adventurers and residents near the harbor that danger had arrived. The scene that took place in the tavern was playing out everywhere in the town. These seasoned adventurers weren't foolish enough to rush blindly into the mist, instead, they gathered and relied on taverns and shops to resist the invading Shawa fishmen. Residents on the streets also fled into their homes, closing the doors and using their houses as cover to temporarily fend off the monsters' attack. Only a few adventurers and residents who couldn't escape in time encountered the Shawa fishmen on the misty streets. However, the adventurers in this town were all experienced warriors, each with their companions, and they were not without resistance. Only the extremely unlucky adventurers would be quickly dealt with by the Shawa fishmen, like the sailors in the harbor. The dragon-descendant wolf species Saha patrolled the streets on the other side of the town, far from the harbor, with his subordinates. Behind him, the kobolds gripped sturdy staffs capable of withstanding iron weapons, dressed in simple clothes. The centaurs were valued for their formidable combat abilities, typically carrying sharp iron shotguns and longbows, draped in tough beast hide and leather armor with excellent defensive capabilities. As for the more powerful dragon-descendant wolf species Saha, he trusted his razor-sharp claws more than ordinary weapons. His reinforced skin, strengthened by the red dragon's bloodline, was no less protective than the centaur warrior's leather armor. Now, these dragon descendants, who were both highly intelligent and more powerful than the other beloveds, were effective assistants under the giant dragon. The dozen or so dragon beloveds brought out from the Gata Empire Colosseum were appointed by the giant dragon to be administrators and sheriffs in the most developed place within the giant dragon territory. Every night, a dragon descendant had to lead the other dragon's beloveds to patrol the entire town, maintaining its order and security. In the past, the dragon descendants only needed to comfortably stay in the town's security office, letting the kobolds and other tribe warriors patrol the streets. This was their privilege. However, the unusually dense mist tonight stirred a sense of unease in the sharp instinct of the wolfman Saha, a feeling rooted in the innate beastly intuition of a werewolf, prompting him to personally lead his monsters on a patrol through the town. For the dragon descendants, not betraying the trust of the giant dragon and their creator was paramount, and the dragon-descendant werewolf Saha didn't want to falter in the responsibilities the red dragon entrusted to him. The beastly intuition of the dragon-descendant werewolf Saha came true when, upon reaching the town center with his beloveds, his keen hearing picked up sounds of battle and monster roars from within the mist. This dragon-descendant werewolf was startled at heart. He did not fear combat, only failing to protect the territory for the red dragon, and now the thick mist severely impeded visibility. Even the mighty werewolf could see no more than 10 meters, as this was no ordinary naturally formed mist, but one imbued with magic power. The dragon-descendant werewolf halted, speaking in dragon language to a kobold behind him. "You go back to the security office and light the warning fire. Karon and the other giant dragons need to know about this immediately. Then gather the other giant dragon warriors from the security office to support us." The dragon-descendant werewolf instructed a few more kobolds, saying, "You notify the residents who aren't aware yet. Every household must be informed, and they need to take up arms and assemble. If the monsters attacking the territory are too numerous, these wooden houses won't hold for long. It's best to come and join us, as it's still unclear where the monsters are spread out, and even fleeing into the forest could be dangerous." The kobolds barked in dragon language and quickly ran back. "As for you, follow me." The dragon-descendant werewolf deliberately left the strong centaur warriors with him, his eyes, radiated and mutated by the red dragon bloodline, glowing a fierce red, his voice filled with fury and hatred. "Daring to attack the giant dragon's domain, before Karon tears these monsters apart, I'll weigh these scum myself." Having said that, the towering dragon-descendant werewolf led the charge into the heavy mist, with the centaur warriors gripping their weapons tightly and following the werewolf's steps into the mist. Whoosh! A few steps into the mist, two ugly monsters leaped out from the dense fog, sharp tridents aimed at the dragon-descendant werewolf ahead. These monsters always attacked in pairs. "Turns out it's you bastard fishmen, damn creatures." The voice of dragon-descendant werewolf Saha was icy, his crimson eyes flashing with intense killing intent, showing no sign of evasion. The dragon-descendant werewolf's robust arms bulged with rippling muscles, razor-sharp claws, usually retracted under long fur, snapped out, his strong legs springing forward, claws forming a diagonal cross as they lunged forward. The tridents aimed at his body were deflected by the overwhelming force of the dragon-descendant werewolf, and the sharp wolf claws sliced into the bodies of the two charging Shawa fishmen. Splurch! The tough skin of two Shawa fishmen, along with their sturdy spinal bones, were sliced apart by the werewolf's sharp claws. The halved bodies fell to the ground, with gushing blood and clumps of internal organs flowing out from the severed bodies. Awoo! Stimulated by the blood, the dragon-descendant werewolf let out an excited howl, heading towards the monsters continuously emerging from the thick fog. Entering into a frenzy state, the dragon-descendant werewolf paid no mind to the tridents stabbing at him. His thick fur and skin, resilient akin to a giant dragon's, made him less concerned about defense. He swung his blood-stained claws and charged forward. "Kill that werewolf, fishmen, annihilate everything. Charge forward, take down that werewolf." The Shawa fishmen shouted in abyssal language, unintelligible to the dragon's beloved. Each clutched their trident, rushing at the dragon-descendant werewolf and centaur warrior. Under the spells of the Shawa fishman priestess, their courage and strength were increased, and the freshly spilled blood further incited their inner savagery. They felt no fear of the werewolf, who appeared exceptionally strong. One Shawa fishman after another charged at the dragon-descendant werewolf, only to be torn apart by the werewolf's sharp claws, leaving broken monstrous bodies and strange blood flowing all over, the heavy scent of blood permeating the fog. The centaur warriors behind naturally formed into a triangular wedge formation, raising their lengthy shotguns to protect the flanks and rear of the dragon-descendant werewolf, engaging in battle with the surging Shawa fishmen. The tridents of the Shawa fishmen were not as long as the shotguns held by the centaur warriors, often being pierced by the shotguns before they could attack the centaur warriors. Moreover, these centaurs were strong, all being robust warriors from the tribe. With their powerful arms, they stabbed through the Shawa fishmen's bodies and then swung, knocking away other charging Shawa fishmen. For a moment, the attack team led by the dragon-descendant werewolf was unstoppable, stirring up a chaotic bloodbath among the monsters. The town, shrouded in fog, hindered visibility. Otherwise, with the inherent strength of centaur cavalry warriors and the power of the dragon-descendant werewolf, their charge would be even more unstoppable. Even though the strength of these Shuo fishmen was quite formidable, more troublesome than ordinary human warriors. But these monsters pouring out of the fog were simply too many, continuously coming forward and recklessly fearless. Even the dragon descendant werewolf and centaur warriors started to bear some scars. Thud! The dragon descendant werewolf's silver-white fur was already drenched in blood as he led the team in successive assaults, finally scattering the monsters attacking the dragon's beloved nearby. His ears twitched as he actively searched for enemies' traces. Ah, save us, these monsters have broken in. A sharp shout came from the fog, the sound very nearby. The door of a residence was broken by the Shuo fishmen, these monsters ready to rush inside to kill the humans and seize their treasures. Bang! A body slammed into the monsters gathered at the door, sending them scattering, and the dragon descendant werewolf came with the centaur warriors to attack. In a frenzy state, the werewolf was extraordinarily fierce, leaping onto two fishmen who fell to the ground, swinging his claws to decapitate the ugly heads of the Shuo fishmen. The other centaur warriors charged over, their clustered shotguns piercing through the monsters' bodies, then flicking downward to send the corpses flying. The dragon descendant werewolf stepped into the residence, where several armed adventurers were standing in the hall, protecting the trembling ladies behind them. He arrived just in time as no casualties had occurred yet. This place can no longer obstruct the monster's attack. You can choose to escape back on your own or follow beside us. Wolfman Saha didn't say much, instead leaving a sentence before turning to leave. A few human warriors and ladies exchanged glances, although the dragon descendant werewolf in frenzy state looked exceedingly fearsome, covered in blood-soaked fur and with crimson eyes and bulging muscles that seemed more like a monster, they nonetheless felt a sense of safety. Follow him, this werewolf is the dragon's beloved. Thus, without much communication, they all chose to follow in the footsteps of the dragon descendant werewolf. Source: webnovel.com, updated by novlove.com. Chapter 91-42, Strike. Chapter 91, Chapter 42, Strike. The wings of the white dragon Gomot naturally harnessed the omnipresent magic power and flowing wind in the air, soaring over the giant dragon territory. The white dragon was now gradually embarking on its ancestral lineage, not only with its entire body covered in white scales as if wrapped in frost, but also differing significantly in size from ordinary white dragons. Typically, young white dragons, belonging to a super small-sized category among the five-colored dragon species, are only about 4 or 5 meters long, and even if calculated according to the stereotypical challenge level, it's not high, even less than the powerful fishman baron among the Shuo fishmen. But Gomot now reaches 7 meters in length, although still slender, compared to other dragons of the same age among the five-colored dragon species. He stands as a large monster before humans and other beasts. Moreover, the resurgence of the blood of ancestral return has strengthened the frost breath of the white dragon, and enhanced its intelligence, so now white dragon Gomot cannot be viewed from an ordinary perspective. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The natural flaps of the giant dragon carried a gust that is considered a tempest for humans, as the white dragon flew over the sky above the forest and suddenly saw thick smoke rising from the dense white fog covering the Golden Harbor town. That was a beacon used for communication, burning dragon feces and various powerful beasts mixed with flammable resins and wood shavings, emitting a distinctively scented thick smoke once ignited. This smoke is hard for ordinary winds to disperse, and the scent of dragon feces can scare away some weak monsters and poisonous insects. But white dragon Gomot knew this beacon wasn't ignited to ward off the ubiquitous poisonous insects in the rainforest, but surely something was attacking the giant dragon's territory. White dragon Gomot flapped its wings towards the burning beacon in Golden Harbor town, which currently serves as a platform for most of the territory's profit and external trade. As the dragon lord ruling this land, he has an unshirkable responsibility. Moreover, the giant dragons will not allow any monster to covet their territory, just like every beast and monster that owns a territory. White dragon Gomot flew over the foggy town, the thick fog even blocked the exceptional eyesight of the giant dragon. He could only vaguely see countless shadows moving and fighting within the fog, and even the transmitted sounds were very faint. Apparently, this dense fog not only obstructed vision but also weakened the transmission of sound, which White Dragon Gomot's clear mind quickly realized. Thanks to past experiences, the White Dragon did not rush to land but flew a full circle around the fog-covered town to investigate the situation. White Dragon Gomot quickly figured out that on the side of the town close to the forest, there were no signs of monster intrusion, only near the harbor and the coast was the town under attack. In the sea, there were monsters continuously leaping onto the shore from the fog, stirring the mist into a frenzy. His exceptional sight and hearing made him discover this. It should be monsters from the sea, not knowing if it's Naga or other fishman monsters from the sea, and among these monsters, there are casters and strong rulers, otherwise, they wouldn't dare attack a town of this scale. There are many of these monsters, but they shouldn't be very strong, otherwise this small town would have been completely conquered long ago. These deductions flashed through the White Dragon's mind, and his anger gradually escalated. Giant dragons are born as upper species, even the weakest White Dragon possesses unparalleled pride, and the violation of his territory by these monsters sparked a fury of destruction that he could not suppress. These vile monsters, they are utterly detestable, the dragon group will tear them apart. White Dragon's mind was surging with boundless fury, he ascended to new heights again, roaring, with powerful magic accompanying the dragon language echoing through the skies. The lofty and uniquely penetrating dragon language pierced through the fog and spread across the four corners. Roar! While conveying the discovered information to other giant dragons, he also intimidated the monsters hidden in the fog. Then White Dragon Gomot stopped roaring. He aimed at his target and swooped down, his massive body plunging into the swirling mist. Kill them, charge forward. Kill these humans and centaurs, they are few in number. Take them down and plunder this place freely, the treasures here belong to us, the Sawa fishmen. Uncountable Sawa fishmen leaped out from the frenzied fighting mist, each brandishing their tridents in a desperate charge, a layer of crimson watery light flowing on their bodies formed by the shark god Sekla's divine power invoked by the Sawa fishman priestess. Kill these hideous fishman monsters. Damn them for wanting to loot my treasures, I'll slaughter them all. Follow me, I'm leading the way. A column led by dragon descendant Wolfman was fighting and retreating among the monsters. Dragon descendant Werewolf Saha, inherently a high-tier extraordinary warrior and belonged to a powerful alien species, further strengthened under the red dragon bloodline's radiation, now exceeds the strength of ordinary young dragons. The formidable body of the dragon descendant Wolfman coupled with sharp claws stood virtually unstoppable before the Sawa fishman, the silver-white long fur now stained with blood, but the enraged Wolfman became even more bloodthirsty, slaughtering fishmen one after another with swiping claws. Source: webnovel.com, updated by novlove.com. Chapter 92-42, Assault, Part 2. Chapter 92, Chapter 42, Assault, Part 2. Following behind was the centaur warrior, unwilling to be outdone, with weapons soaked in blood. The long shotgun had been wrapped with cloth pieces to prevent slipping, and its precise stabs swept out a limited space among the Sawa fishman warriors. Adventurers trapped by fishman warriors in buildings joined the team, while the dwarf warrior Klagan swung his heavy hammer. His broad and square muscles erupted in tremendous power, throwing away the approaching fishmen, as the hammer hit the sturdy Sawa fishman warriors' bodies, producing the sound of bones cracking. "Come on, you trashy fishmen, dare you steal Klagan's drink money, I'll hammer each of you to death." Mage Razi and his adventurer team were also within the lineup. His left hand held a glowing magical staff, dispelling the fog that troubled the team, illuminating obscured views. From his right, he took out spell scrolls from his embrace, scattering healing power from them to those warriors fighting at the front lines. There were also some enhancing spell scrolls. Bear's strength granted warriors power stronger than beasts, while defensive spell scrolls protected those at the forefront. These were Mage Razi's means of survival, as his magic manipulation was more delicate compared to ordinary mages, and his hands were steadier, thus his collection of spell scrolls exceeded others. Other trapped adventurers also joined the growing team. No one could endure their wealth being looted without cause, especially these town residents who brave life-risking adventures seeking fortune. Noblemen and their private soldiers from business groups joined the combat, as they would only plunder others' wealth and couldn't endure being plundered themselves. They, led by dragons' beloveds, fought against the invading monsters, the battle cries deafening. Every warrior bloodily fought, wielding weapons. Assassins lurked within the crowd, each appearance harvesting a monster's life, while priests scattered healing and blessings radiance. Mages remained grouped at the rear, providing magic support and strike power. But the monsters were overwhelming, seemingly endless in the fog, as Shawa fishmen fell continuously. Human warriors and dragons beloved inadvertently got struck by incoming monsters, dragged into the mist. They could only resist while retreating. A spell was cast from Shawa fishman priestess wielding a coral staff, emitting bloody water like a blood frenzy. This spell heightened Shawa fishman warriors' desire for blood, strengthening them and dulling pain sensitivity. Another Shawa fishman priestess cast spell light, guided by weak divine power from the shark god, dispersing magic elements like specks upon Shawa fishman warriors. This was a group blessing spell, enhancing their fighting spirit and defense. Another Shawa fishman priestess aimed at the foremost attacking Shawa fishman warriors, harnessing power in the coral staff, surrounded by healing magic power. This was group healing truth. Then surged magic power formed energy tridents, directed by the priestess's staff, realized in mid-air, raining down upon monsters and humans battling Shawa fishman warriors. Occasionally falling tracer bullet skill spell illuminated human and dragon's beloved eyes. Sporadic human stasis skill could control unsuspecting human warriors. Yet the fishman baron leading the Shawa fishmen lurked at the rear, commanding relentless assaults. These Shawa fishman warriors clung tightly to the retreating resistance, as if tireless and fearless of death. Roar! Suddenly, a dragon's angry roar echoed as white dragon Gomot descended from the sky, landing upon earth. Oh, the dragon has arrived, our support is here. The battling crowd cheered, their spirits spurred, momentarily suppressing Shawa fishman's offense. The white dragon's huge body landed, instantly crushing several Shawa fishman warriors upon impact. The dragon power he emitted momentarily stunned the fierce Shawa fishman. White dragon Gomot opened his mouth full of jagged fangs and bit a Shawa fishman into halves, then angrily roared. You damn monsters, daring to assault the dragon's territory! Aren't you afraid of the dragon's wrath destroying you? Dragon! A green light appeared in the thick fog, as the Shawa fishman baron stepped forth to behold the descended white dragon. Merely a white dragon, just a young one, the baron remarked disdainfully, his formidable power undeterred by the young dragon, wielding sharp enchanted weapons with limbs. Continue the attack, capture this white dragon, I also want a pet like the frost giants do. Source: webnovel.com, updated by novlove.com. Chapter 93-42, Assault_3. Chapter 93, Chapter 42, Assault_3. Attack, capture this white dragon as a pet. Taste the flavor of giant dragon's blood. The Shawa fishman priestess waved her coral staff to cast a spell, invoking a thread of divine power to try and suppress the white dragon. Meanwhile, the two-armed fishman warriors mixed among the regular Shawa fishmen wielded weapons and launched an assault on the white dragon. Hiss! White dragon Gomot stepped back, joining with the dragon descendant and adventurers. As Gomot retreated, he took a deep breath, his frost-white scales emitting cold air, his chest and belly expanding, and his gigantic mouth opened wide. Whoosh! A chilling breath roared out from the white dragon's mouth, the cold breath blasting forth, freezing the approaching Shawa fishman warriors. Despite the spells of protection guided by the Shawa fishman priestess, ordinary Shawa fishmen were harmed by the white dragon's breath, the moisture on their bodies congealing into frost, their tridents becoming icy and freezing their hands to the flesh. The sea water seeped into the ground, freezing into a thin layer of ice, many Shuwa fishermen unable to stop their momentum and fell directly. They suffered from cold wounds, their hands and feet freezing, limbs becoming clumsy, and some of the weaker Shuwa fishermen even temporarily frozen in place. White Dragon Gomot seized the opportunity to charge into the group of monsters, its sharp dragon claws easily slicing through the Shuwa fishermen, and its dragon head biting, long fangs shredding fishermen, leaving behind a mouthful of blood and flesh. Take this chance to rush forward and kill these monsters. Seeing the opportunity, the dragon descendant Wolfman followed the white dragon in a proactive strike, swinging wolf claws to pounce. The warriors behind also followed the Wolfman in a counterattack, but those Shuwa fishermen showed no fear of the young white dragon and these humans and monsters. Under the priestess's magic, they swarmed forward, filling in the gaps of the Shuwa fishermen previously hit by the dragon breath. The mighty Shuwa fisherman Baron also wielded a weapon, his strong physique stepping forward, and the Shuwa fisherman priestess swung spells with her coral staff bestowing strength enhancements and protection upon him. Whoosh! This powerful fisherman Baron surged with the Fishman warrior brigade, began to run, his trident shooting towards the massive body of the white giant dragon. Meanwhile, the young dragons from far away at the Dragon Nest mountain range also saw the distant smoke and flames rising, along with the white dragon Gomot's dragon language magic transmission. They all rose. The female red dragon Kleena also leapt out of Karon's magma lake, approaching Karon. What should we do, Karon? The young dragons all looked towards the red dragon. In the transmission from white dragon Gomot they knew the threat came from monsters in the sea, but did not know how strong these monsters were. After previous lessons, these giant dragons would not act rashly, fearing targeted attacks again. Despite their inherent arrogance as giant dragons, they had to admit the young giant dragons were not enough to stand atop the world. If these invading monsters posed a threat to these young giant dragons, they would abandon Golden Harbor Town, being selfish and selfing five-colored evil dragons. Even under Karon's influence, they only cared about the dragon group. The red dragon sprayed out a plume of intense sparks between his nostrils, and he too stood up. The dragon group's territory is not to be invaded. These sea monsters won't be stronger than giant dragons once they come ashore. Karon had a clear assessment and comparison of his power, much stronger than the average young red dragon. Even against the deep sea naga he did not fear with his current strength. Karon stretched his wings over 20 meters long. He said solemnly, "You all watch from behind, intercept enemies or provide support as needed. I will let the wrath of the giant dragons destroy the lives of these enemies." Boom! The red dragon's strong and broad wings stirred, generating a howling wind and rose into the sky. The raging wind and magic power in the air simmered beneath his wings. Humid hot air evaporated from his scale armor. At this moment the red dragon's speed reached its pinnacle. A blaze of red flame soared into the sky. He broke through the air barrier, riding the wind away. The sharp whistle echoed in the high sky. Behind him, dragons of various colors slowly ascended, rising into the air. Source: webnovel.com, updated by novlove.com. Chapter 94-43, Slaughter. Chapter 94, Chapter 43, Slaughter. Whoosh! Karon's massive body rapidly swept across the sky, the red dragon brimming with magic power resembling a red streak across the heavens, its fiery red scale armor radiating intense heat, enshrouding its entire body like a red mist. In its high-speed flight, the red mist was torn into a long tail flame by the fierce winds, intersecting with the turbulent trail left by the red dragon rushing through the sky. Bang! At maximum speed, the sonic boom resounded. A white cone cloud with a red hue covered the rear of the red dragon's huge body, distinctly visible even in the night sky. Karon is truly a monster. My God, how strong must Karon be to achieve such high-speed flight? The young blue dragon Axi had always known the power of the red dragon was formidable, but its speed was beyond imagination, leaving Axi far behind. The many young dragons trailing behind the red dragon couldn't help but be astounded by its speed and might. Achieving such a speed not only requires mastery of flight magic but also an extremely robust physique. Even though dragon flight relies heavily on magic power, without sufficient physical strength, it wouldn't be sustainable. Rumble. The red dragon's massive and sturdy body traversed the sky, cloaked in a sonic boom cloud, heading towards the town, leaving a long-lasting flight trail. In this extreme flight, 200 to 300 miles were crossed in an instant. The red dragon navigated the winds across the sky above the town. Layers of magic fog could obscure the view of a giant dragon, but not Karon's true perception. Karon, with its expanded true vision, pierced through the dense layers of fog. The ships in the harbor were mostly intact, countless green-skinned Shawa fishermen still leaping onto the shores, with sharks lurking beneath the sea surface aiding them. The bodies of some deceased adventurers and sailors were mangled beyond recognition, many houses broken under the attack of the Shawa fishermen, flames vigorously burning on the wooden homes, the once lively town half destroyed. Karon's fury simmered within, the violent nature from the red dragon's bloodline starting to awaken with the surge of evil dragon blood. Yet these creatures continued to advance towards the center of the town, seeking to destroy the town painstakingly established, to plunder its wealth, to ravage its domain. Unforgivable, you damn green-skinned mongrels! You shall all suffer the wrath of the dragon's fire. The roar of the red dragon boomed across the sky, rolling and dissipating. Boom! White Dragon Gomot knocked away the approaching dual-armed Shawa fisherman warriors, then roared loudly, "Ha ha ha, you're doomed, lowly fishman, the mighty red dragon has arrived, prepare to face his wrath." Blood and scars had started to appear on its body, though the scales of the white dragon could deflect most weapon attacks, many areas of the dragon's body remained uncovered by scales. Moreover, the Shawa fisherman baron was unexpectedly powerful, possessing strength not inferior to a young white dragon, and its weapon, enhanced by magic, inflicted substantial damage on the white dragon. Red dragon? There's another giant dragon here? Damn! The Shawa fisherman baron was stunned by the roars of the young white dragon and the celestial giant dragon. If another red dragon was present, even a young dragon was a tough nut to crack, making it reconsider attacking the town in the first place. At this moment, Karon was returning from the sky, shrouded in wind and thunder like a celestial meteor plummeting to earth, descending at high speed. Bang! The pervasive fog was temporarily dispersed by the gale commandeered by the dragon. Karon's massive and heavy body crashed into the ground of the town, creating a large crater, kicking up dust and debris. The surrounding Shawa fisherman warriors were flung away by the sheer impact force. A powerful airflow swept across, scattering mud, stone, and blood. The crimson dragon, with its red-scaled armor grim and its head horns menacing. Its hind legs pushed as it stood mightily, its strong muscles rippling fluidly beneath the scales, its scarlet eyes blazing with destructive fire, broad powerful wings gently flapping, its massive body exuding sheer intimidation. The unsuspecting Shawa fisherman priestess, crushed beneath the falling red dragon, became a pulp of flesh, the foul-smelling blood oozing from beneath the red dragon, spreading across the ground. Red dragon, it's a powerful red giant dragon. The priests were crushed by the red dragon. Are we even fighting? It's a red dragon on the other side. The monster's terrified cries spread through the mist. Having lost the support of the Shasha fisherman priestess's magic, the originally ferocious nature of these Shasha fishermen instantly vanished at the sight of the terrifying red dragon slowly rising. The intense dragon power emanating from the red dragon also sapped their will to resist, and some Shawa fisherman warriors were already dropping their weapons in fear. They began to slowly retreat, preparing to flee from the red dragon. Damn it, could this dreadful red dragon be a young dragon? The attacking Shawa fisherman warriors also stopped, with the Shawa fisherman baron roaring. Run quickly, retreat to the sea. Bastards, thinking of running away, a fiery line began to brighten between Karon's chest and abdomen as he took a deep breath, and magic power surged through the air. Whiz! Amidst the sharp, piercing sound of exploding air, a violent dragon fire erupted from the mouth of the terrifying red dragon, and the fan-shaped, rampant dragon fire blazed forth. The surging magic power and the rolling dragon fire collided and converged, spewing out extremely terrifying high-temperature flames, which evaporated the dense white mist. Ah! Ah! Help! Run away! Under the red dragon's intimidation, the Shuo fishermen warriors scattered in panic barely managed to run a few steps before they were engulfed by the unparalleled high-temperature dragon fire, which instantly ignited every creature it touched. Their clothes turned to charcoal in an instant, and their skin and flesh burned fiercely like torches, quickly burning to nothing, before the terrifying dragon fire continued to ignite their bones. Boom! 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 One by one, Shuo fishermen warriors fell as they ran, like burning flames scattering around. Crackle popping, it didn't take long for their entire bodies to be reduced to ashes. The once crowded street was instantly cleared by the red dragon, and the previously damaged houses around were also burning fiercely under the red dragon's furious dragon fire. Bang! The scorching heat created explosive shockwaves in the air, collapsing the wooden houses and burying many fleeing Shuo fishermen under them, turning this stretch of street into a fiery ruin. This terrifying scene shocked all the Shuo fishermen, and they all screamed and ran towards the sea, even dropping their weapons on the ground in order to run faster. The powerful armed Shuo fishermen pushed aside their own kind in their path in fear, terrified that the red dragon's dragon fire might land on them. The Shuo fisherman baron was at the front, and now he couldn't even order these fishermen warriors to block the red dragon. They were all scared out of their wits, desperately escaping to the sea. Run, run as fast as you can, let us enjoy the thrill of the chase. The red dragon bared its gruesome fangs, its tone cold as it chose not to unleash its dragon fire to avoid further damage to the town's environment, instead folding its wings and starting to run. Rumbling, the massive body of the dreadful red dragon crashed through a wooden house blocking its path, charging wildly, trampling countless Shuo fishermen warriors along the way. Wham! 2 running fishermen were caught by the red dragon, its strong hind limbs stomping them flat. The red dragon's running speed increased, and its wings became a powerful weapon. It unfolded its long wings, slicing through, the scale-armored wings sharp and strong like the sharpest blade, cutting through the bodies of fishermen. Squish! A few fleeing fishermen were sliced in half by the red dragon's wings, and the strong life force of the fishermen made their severed bodies twitch futilely on the ground. Crunch! A few more fishermen were caught by the red dragon, its gigantic, ferocious head biting, the terrifying force of its jaws reducing any fisherman touched by its deadly fangs into minced meat, and then the glowing flames in the red dragon's mouth turned the mince into ashes. Kill! Kill all these fishermen! White Dragon Gomot and the dragon's beloved, along with other adventurers, charged forward with red eyes, intent on compensating for tonight's losses with the blood and flesh of these monsters. Their pursuit was much faster than the fishermen's escape, and one by one the Shuo fishermen, lacking any ability to resist, were hacked to death. Source: webnovel.com, updated by novlove.com. Chapter 95-44, Massacre. Chapter 95, Chapter 44, Massacre. Damn it, get out of my way, don't block my path. The Shuo fisherman baron's strong and powerful forearms extended sharp claws, pushing away and tearing apart the Shuo fisherman warriors in front of him. His powerful weapon, enhanced with magic by the Shuo fisherman priestess, could easily penetrate the 4 weapons of a young giant dragon, which he had already discarded, along with the treasures he had looted, just to slightly increase his speed of escape. One by one, the Shuo fisherman warriors did not die at the hands of the dragons and their beloveds but were killed by their own ruler. Any ordinary warrior standing in the baron's way was torn in half by his own sovereign. These ordinary fisherman warriors fell one by one unguarded on the path of escape, their warm, fishy blood spilling across the shore. The looted gold coins, gemstones, and jewelry were soaked in blood, mixed with the fishy and salty sea breeze, creating a strange smell that spread across the vast coast. But the Shuo fisherman baron did not care about these ordinary fisherman warriors. The sea was vast and endless, with countless Shuo fishermen. As long as he could return to the sea, he could easily rebuild a tribe that would not lose to his current group. Now, he was extremely frightened, feeling that his once powerful limbs, capable of contending with a young white dragon, were now weak and soft. He exerted all his strength to rush into the sea, which seemed so close before, just wanting to survive the claws of that terrifying red dragon. But now, the Shuwa Fishman Baron suddenly felt that this path was so long. Damn it, why didn't I investigate the situation clearly here? Why is there a monster like a red dragon here? I'm going to kill that fishman. The fear and shock in the Shuwa Fishman Baron's heart turned into anger and ferocity. He decided that if he managed to escape, he would skin and dismember the Shuwa fishman who patrolled the sea and feed him alive to his pet sharks. Roar! The white dragon Gomot, whose body was not protected by scales, was scarred, with dragon blood oozing from these deep wounds caused by the Shuwa Fishman Baron and Shuwa Fishman warriors. But now, the pain from these injuries turned into his killing desire. The white dragon Gomot's wings were not as strong and hard as the red dragon's. He simply folded his wings and ran through the town like a hunting beast on the plains and forests. Boom! The young white dragon's body crashed into the group of running Shuwa Fishman warriors like a moving bulldozer, the sharp dragon claws slicing through the legs of those fishman warriors like the sharpest swords. The hard leg bones of these Shuwa fishmen were also cut by the white dragon's sharp claws, the galloping body splitting in two, the lower half falling to the ground, while the upper half was thrown several meters forward by the forward momentum, only then realizing their legs had been severed, letting out a wretched howl. But the white dragon's thick limbs, pressing down as they passed, trampled these terrified and howling Shuwa fishman warriors into pulp, the blood gradually dyeing the dragon's white scales red. Awoo, slaughter, I enjoy this feeling, this is the life that werewolf warriors should live. The powerful dragon descendant Wolfman ran across the rooftops of the town, specifically choosing areas with the most Shuwa fishman warriors to pursue. The monster's natural claws turned into instruments of slaughter. The dragon descendant werewolf Saha, in a frenzied state, his entire white fur now stained deep red, with streams of blood and meat fragments dripping from his coat. His scarlet eyes and the heavy white mist he exhaled made him a creature even more terrifying than the Shuwa fishman. The dragon descendant Wolfman, skilled in combat skills, may not have the massive body of the young white dragon, but his slaughter was quicker and more effective than the white dragon Gomot. The dragon descendant Wolfman's agile body shuttled through the crowded residential areas of the town, the obstacles hindering the fleeing fishman warriors acting as his aids. The werewolf's powerful strength allowed him to leap through the crowded rooftops, with each landing his claws would take the life of these monsters. The congested town had already become the hunting ground of the frenzied werewolf. Puff! The werewolf's leaping body passed like a bloody flash, the long claws of slaughter cutting through the necks of 4 or 5 Shuwa fishman warriors, spattering a spray of blood as fresh blood gushed out. Among them was a strong fishman warrior with double arms, whose backbone was also severed, the head rolling and tumbling towards the sea, but it was never to reach. The galloping centaur warriors had a speed unattainable by fishman warriors, their rifles' cloth strips had long been soaked with the monster's blood. They had to grip their weapons with great force, thus appearing particularly violent. The long rifles in the hands of the centaur warriors turned into skewers for candied hawthorns. The mighty strength and swift speed allowed the spears to easily pierce through the tough hides of Shuwa fishman warriors, carrying the fishmen's bodies forward, until the lance was filled with fishmen's bodies. The generally weak dogman's beloveds barked and chased after the dragon's beloveds. Their diminutive stature became an advantage in the crowded town, and the brutal nature inherited from other races turned them into cruel killers once they caught fishman warriors. Fishman warriors had their limbs torn off by the dogman's beloveds, their tough hides peeled off and draped over the kobolds, and finally, their heads were torn off, hung on the waist of a kobold as trophies and toys. Charge! Don't let those damn fishmen escape back to the sea. Kill them and take back the plundered treasure. These human adventurers were not to be outdone, their main target now was the treasure carried by the fleeing Shuwa fishmen. The treasures plundered by the Shuwa fishmen had now become unclaimed war spoils in the open, and their greed for these riches made them particularly vigorous in hunting down these monsters. Bang! Dwarf warrior Klagan wielded his heavy hammer with powerful force, smashing the bones of 2 Shawa fishman warriors, and then crushed a terrified fishman warrior, and began to search his body. Ha ha ha, good, it seems I can have a big drink tomorrow again. The dwarf warrior excitedly stuffed the plundered gold coins into his pocket and lifted his heavy hammer again to chase the fishman. After the terrifying red dragon stomped the Shawa fishman priestesses to death, the dense fog that shrouded the town gradually dispersed. The remaining mages accelerated the dissipation of the fog with magic, and now the town was no longer troubled by the fog obstructing visibility. Thus, the scene that occurred with the dwarf warrior was replicated in every corner of the town, and even the adventurers in the unaffected back part of the town rushed out. Upon witnessing the red dragon's descent, they had already made their judgment and turned into bloodthirsty predators, treating the monsters fleeing into the town as delicious prey. Rumble! Karon's massive body charged like a heavy truck from a past life, his murderous desire surged, now indifferent to whether the town's buildings were destroyed. His terrifying power rammed directly through the wooden-built houses, punching holes in them, and sturdy houses were smashed and collapsed. The giant logs could not harm the massive-bodied red dragon, but they could knock down and bury the fleeing fishman warriors in the alleys. The red dragon charged along, like an out-of-control metal war chariot bulldozing through the town, raising clouds of dust in its wake, with crackling sounds everywhere. Countless Shawa fishmen were buried under the collapsed houses, trampled or crushed by the charging red dragon. The monster's wails became the melody accompanying the red dragon's attack, the monster's screams the accompaniment of the red dragon's slaughter. Roar! The wild dragon blood surged to life, and the oppressive dragon power of the red dragon expanded, causing many Shawa fishman warriors to be so terrified by the dreadful aura that their legs weakened. Yet, the dragon's aura swept across overwhelmingly like a tide, it was the aura of death. Ah, the monsters are catching up. Spare me, I am willing to submit to the giant dragon. The fog that had enveloped the town was replaced by the Shawa fishmen's terrified wails and pleas, but the monsters that gave up fleeing were soon trampled by the red dragon, turned into a mushy pulp. Karon's powerful impact soon broke through the town's obstacles, leaving a trail of blood and shattered flesh, but he had a new target now. His blood-stained, bright red eyes locked onto the Shawa fishman baron running at the front. The baron's formidable life force was crystal clear to his senses. Closer, closer, just a few more steps and I'll escape into the sea, away from this terrifying giant dragon. The Shawa fishman baron sensed the red dragon's aura approaching from behind him, but the sea water was just a few steps away. A mix of horror and relief rose in his heart as he leaped towards the sea representing life. Bang! The sharp whistling wind accompanied the Shawa fishman baron's plunge into the sea, as a splash of blood spread in the dark blue waters. The baron's strong body had all its bones shattered, floating like a pile of mush on the churning sea surface. Just a little bit closer. The Shawa fishman baron's lifeless fish eyes gazed at the pitch-dark night sky as ruptured organs and blood gushed from his mouth. A massive log floated and sank beside him, and the shark pack, scenting the blood, went frenzy, starting to tear at the barely conscious Shawa fishman baron's body. The last impression of the Shawa fishman baron as he lost consciousness was the dragon group diving down from above the sky. Source: webnovel.com, updated by novlov.com. Chapter 96-45, Aftermath. Chapter 96, Chapter 45, Aftermath. The young dragons flying down from the sky turned the boundary between land and sea into a slaughterhouse. Black Dragon Rosani fully showcased the most cruel nature among the 5-color dragons. Bang! The black dragon spread his wings and schemed low, his cold vertical pupils filled with cruelty. His sturdy dragon claws pierced through the Shawa fishman warriors who had fled to the seaside, lifting them high into the sky and watching them fall to their death. Green Dragon Antagena preferred to dive into the ocean, binding the lucky fishman warriors who had fled into the sea with seaweed vines conjured by her magic. Finally, she would exhale a conical corrosive breath to torment these fishermen warriors to death, because even in the sea, all giant dragons could breathe freely and use their breath, although the ability was somewhat weakened in seawater. The sharks gathered by the Shuwa fishermen were also effortlessly killed or driven away by the giant dragons. Under the dragon's power, these ordinary sharks dared not resist. The habits of white dragons and blue dragons bear some similarities. Blue dragons like to suddenly emerge from their hiding spots in the desert to ambush their enemies. Stealth and swimming were the instincts of white dragons. White dragon Kamid, like the green dragon, would dive into the water and then suddenly burst forth to freeze the Shuwa fishermen who had fled into the sea into ice blocks, smashing them one by one. In fact, the sinister hobby of the white dragons was to freeze prey and then smash them into fragments, enjoying the sound of ice cracking. Blue dragon Akzi and blue dragon Das were hunting beasts, with the Shuwa fishermen as their favorite prey. Two blue dragons schemed across the coast, lifting Shuwa fishermen into the air, tossing them, then electrocuting them with lightning breath to a crispy flavor, finally swallowing them whole. The taste of Shuwa fishermen is truly delightful. I think we could raise these fishermen like snacks in the future. Don't burn them all to death. Blue dragon Das swallowed another fishman, diving down from mid-air, shouting at red dragon Kleena, who was indulged in spewing dragon fire. Humph! These fishmen who dare offend the giant dragons don't deserve to exist. Karon will crush them all, the irritable female red dragon roared, as her scorching dragon fire evaporated the sea water into layers of steaming mist. She flew back and forth along the long coastline, spraying incessant dragon fire, turning Shuwa fishermen near the seaside into running torches. The entire coastline and gulf became a graveyard for these monsters invading the giant dragon territory, with countless Shuwa fishermen and shark corpses floating on the sea, and innumerable wrecked limbs scattered on the coast. Under the slaughter of the giant dragons, almost all the landed Shuwa fishermen died here, with only a lucky few Shuwa fishermen warriors escaping. Dawn broke, the once bustling town was now half in ruins. The surviving majority of town residents began to clear the debris and monster corpses, surprised to find the dragon's beloved also helping with the cleanup. In the impression of these town adventurers and residents, these creatures were known only for slaughter and destruction. Even after this time of interaction, such impressions persisted. However, these impressions were gradually changing over time, as everything happening on this land suggested it was an orderly, unique dragon kingdom. Many centaurs and kobolds, led by the dragon descendants, were pushing over damaged houses. Unusable lumber was dragged to clearings in the forest to be piled into bonfires, along with dead Shuwa fishermen corpses. In the humid summer weather, these Shuwa fishermen corpses would quickly rot, attracting many poisonous insects and flies, which could lead to plagues if not burnt. Each green-skinned goblin and ogre slave diligently carried items back and forth under the supervision of centaur warriors and dogmen's beloved. Within this territory, the green-skinned goblins and ogre slaves occupied the lowest status, performing all the hard and tiring labor. However, these ogres and green-skinned goblins were now quite happy, as a considerable portion of the Shuwa fishermen corpses could serve as their food. In terms of food supply, they belonged to the lowest tier. Filling their bellies was once considered fortunate, but now they had an ample supply of meat. The town's residents, having gone through this battle, no longer had any aversion towards the dragon's beloved or the monsters. They would even call upon the beloved for assistance, boasting about how many monsters they killed last night and how many gold coins and copper coins they gained. Whoosh! Dragons flew in the sky, two blue dragons skimming the sea, Akzi and Das, searching for escaped Shuwa fishermen, hoping to track them to their tribe's nest. In these nests of ocean creatures fond of plundering, there were usually many stolen treasures and some collected from the sea, tempting the greedy young giant dragons to voluntarily undertake this task without Karon's urging. Black dragon Rosani and two white dragons were diving into the water searching for Shuwa fishermen activity, though they wouldn't stray too far from the coast. Despite dragons thriving in the sea, many creatures could easily harm young dragons. Green dragon Antagena, surrounded by flying birds from the forest, as a master of the forest, enjoyed nesting and roaming within it. Frequent contact with the forest enhanced her plant affinity and related magical affinity. Red Dragon Kleena followed alongside Karon, now patrolling the town. Dragon descendant werewolf Saha trailing after the dragon. Dragon descendants always centered around the dragons, no matter the time. My lord! Great true dragon! My sovereign! Along the way, the dragon's beloved all bowed to the red dragon upon sight, as beloveds always maintained their reverence towards dragons. The moving red dragon attracted the townspeople's gaze. Even busy clearing their homes and properties, they couldn't help but focus their attention on the red dragon, given that most of them had witnessed the red dragon's majestic descent from the sky. The dragon's keen ears caught many whispered discussions. Look at him, the powerful red dragon ruling this land and the dragon group. Compared to him, the other red dragon is a whole generation apart. So terrifying, his flames could practically melt iron. This power doesn't belong to a young dragon. Isn't strength good? The stronger he is, the safer we are here. Who knew what beast's courage those foolish fishmen ate to dare attack the red dragon's lands? It seems last night's monsters didn't scare off these adventurers. Karon folded his wings, strolling through the streets, pondering the mode of coexistence with humans in the rebuilt town. Initially, Karon intended for humans to stick to humans, monsters to monsters, and dragons to rule over all. Therefore, not many dragons beloved were deployed in the town, just a portion for management, but now changes are needed. Humans can choose to flee directly in the face of danger, yet the damaged entity remains the dragon's territory. He needed to deploy more forces in this town that brought wealth to maintain order and security, ensuring the stable circulation of wealth. And the layout of the rebuilt town should be planned, it can't be built haphazardly like before. Overcrowded residential spacing causes many issues, and a fire could ignite the entire town. Though the dragon's beloved are all huddleheads, merely executing simple orders. It's very difficult to demand them to abide by their own order. Trainings would be a waste of time, perhaps utilizing some humans to serve could be viable. Looking at the many wooden houses demolished by himself last night, Karon's thoughts wandered. Perhaps he was too lazy before, and he shouldn't delegate everything to other dragons and beloved. Source: webnovel.com, updated by novlove.com. Chapter 97-46, Habits. Chapter 97, Chapter 46, Habits. As Karon and the dragon descendants walked through, the adventurers and residents of the town all paid their respects to the enormous red dragon. Good day, the giant dragon lord who rules this place. An old man with a mouth full of missing teeth executed a formal noble bow. Good day, mighty giant dragon, Rose and Heer bowed deeply in front of their tavern, which was located near the center edge of the town. Luckily only the tavern's door was broken. With the help of adventurers gathered in the tavern, they managed to hold their ground until the dragon descendant werewolf Saha and other dragons beloved came to the rescue, so both of them felt genuine respect for the visit of the giant dragon. Oh, I know you too, the humans who like brewing. Karon halted, looking at the crooked sign of the tavern. The deep voice of the giant dragon reverberated in the ears of the two lucky humans. Even when speaking normally, it was like amplifying through a megaphone to human ears. Your drinks are not bad, Das had me taste them, but the portions are too small. Karon extended his menacing, majestic head towards them, sniffing the aromas wafting from the tavern. The giant dragon's keen sense of smell allows Karon to easily discern the source of scents among the many mixed odors. The female red dragon Kleena also curiously extended her head, her exceptionally long neck almost reaching into the tavern's doorway, her massive head looming over the two humans. Seeing the spiky, ferocious head of the giant dragon approaching, Rose and Heer felt a bit nervous. The spiky cheeks of the giant dragon appeared particularly menacing, the thick, forked dragon horns seemed as though they could easily pierce through the sturdiest armor, and the savage white fangs gleamed with a predatory glint as the dragon spoke. Even though the two young lads knew the giant dragon ahead wouldn't harm them, they couldn't help their legs from trembling slightly. After all, it wouldn't be a problem for the dragon to swallow a human in one bite. Respectful giant dragon, it's our honor to please you. Usually daring Heer was somewhat startled by the red dragon Klina's elongated neck persistently sniffing around, trembling legs. Only the honest Rose stammered a reply to the giant dragon's words. Foo, foo. The aroma is quite good, remember to brew more drinks next time and send them over. I've yet to taste those drinks. The young dragoness Klina retracted her agile, slender neck, preparing to leave. However, the young dragoness quickly realized that Karon had not moved, and like those around, was watching her with his big dragon eyes. What's the matter? Bravely boisterous female dragon Klina now genuinely shrank her neck, not caring about the gaze of these humans, but mainly Karon's gaze made her feel as if she had done something wrong, now only being apprehensive of Karon in the dragon group. Karon, of course, knew what these humans were thinking. In the past, Rose and Heer gave away the drinks as a goodwill gesture towards the dragon's beloved. But now, with Klina asking, they might think the giant dragon was demanding tribute, a form of plundering. Although to the giant's dragons, all this was normal, everything within their territory belonged to the dragons, the current situation was different. Strictly speaking, these town adventurers and residents weren't yet considered dragon subjects, more like merchants here for trading. Moreover, Karon didn't want to scare these humans away. In his eyes, these humans could create wealth for himself and the dragon group, could help develop the territory, and anyway, the dragon didn't lack that bit of money. It's best if both dragons and their beloveds could develop a habit of trading. Karon thought it more beneficial to use treasures for circulation and exchange to create more value rather than leave them in caves as pillows. Karon deliberately amplified his voice, shaking Rose's ears with its depth. Klina, you need money to buy things. If you don't pay, how will others trade with you? Do you intend to have a free ride? This is not what a dragon lord should do. The resilient skin on the young dragoness's face wrinkled up. To be honest, she did have that intention. To dragons, treasures are their lifeblood. Even if the five-colored dragon god Tiamat asked them for even a copper coin, these five-colored dragons would feel provoked enough to slap Tiamat. But fortunately, under Karon's influence, this dragon group was different from the usual. Klina just furrowed her brow for several minutes, then fished out a few silver coins from under her scales, tossing them to the expectant Rose. Humph, remember to send me top-quality drinks. If I'm not satisfied with the taste, I'll take back those silver coins. The young dragoness Klina furrowed her brow looking down at the humans before her, still somewhat reluctantly parting with her silver coins. Rest assured, noble giant dragon, I will definitely deliver the finest drinks. Rose, gripping the coins tightly, pulled his friend down into a bow. Let's go. Karon turned, leading Klina and the dragon's beloved to continue patrolling the street, wanting to see if there were any remaining issues within the town. Taking advantage of the town's need for rebuilding, many things could easily be adjusted and modified without much resistance. In Karon's mind, the future of Golden Harbor Town could serve as a business card for the Dragon Group's territory to external interactions and trades, and with land routes inaccessible, this natural harbor would be the most crucial channel for external communication, worthy of attention. Good day, noble true dragon, voices were heard all along the way, unavoidable, though Karon somewhat enjoyed this feeling. No matter whether human or dragon, they often relished being in the spotlight. However, one voice captured Karon's attention, directing his gaze towards the civilian mage who spoke. He remembered this mage quite vividly, mainly because the mage's combat style left a strong impression on dragons, endlessly hurling seemingly countless spell scrolls as if they cost nothing, drawing a drag's disdain with its extravagance. Simply put, the mage profession is not one you can engage in without capital. The red dragon halted its steps, towering over the mage, looking down at him. Mage, tell me, what's your name? The dragon's voice resonated in their ears, prompting Mage Lazy and his adventurer team to reflexively take a step back. Even when restraining its dragon power, the dragon still exerted an unmatched pressure on them. The mage, unlike ordinary adventurers, understood more about the power possessed by the red dragon in front of him. Mage Lazy, through studying magic knowledge, had the fortune to learn a bit about dragons, yet the red dragon before him was vastly different from the usual young red dragons. Its unique appearance and behavior indicated the red dragon possessed distinctive power, and in Lazy's understanding, rational dragons often achieve greater success. At a certain point, they are more likely to access the laws of the world. Moreover, a dragon's chaotic mind often becomes a weakness easily exploited by enemies, and rational dragons are far more challenging than those solely powerful by bloodline. Thus, the mage respectfully bowed low, answering, "Esteemed dragon, I am called Lazy, an adventurer mage." Source: webnovel.com, updated by novlove.com. Chapter 98-47, The Dwarf Warrior's Oath of Fealty. Chapter 98, Chapter 47, The Dwarf Warrior's Oath of Fealty. Adventurer Mage Lazy, I'm impressed by you, Karon signaled the mage and his adventurer companions not to be nervous. He squatted down, and the robust dragon claw flowed with magical brilliance. A pile of treasures sparkling with bright light appeared in front of the mage. I saw your performance last night. You have made a great contribution to defending the territory of the giant dragons. You deserve my reward. Karon's crimson vertical pupils were filled with admiration for the mage. You can choose any one of these treasures as my reward to you. The giant dragon looked down at the mage before him, his demeanor as lofty as ever. To Karon, Mage Lazy's performance was surely worth his reward, but actually, Mage Lazy, like most adventurers, was merely protecting his own life and property. However, this action by Karon was more to express an attitude of the ruler of this territory, akin to spending a fortune on a horse's bone. The giant dragons would certainly reward those with merit, and they were never stingy, always generous. Moreover, Karon was keen to recruit these individuals with special skills, but he wouldn't say it openly. After all, he was the Dragon Lord and couldn't be too proactive. Once he expressed his attitude, those with such intentions would definitely take the initiative to contact the dragon's beloved, thus maintaining the dragon's demeanor, and those humans who approached could not demand more. But Mage Lazy and his adventurer companions and the adventurers around who heard the dragon's words were stunned. Not because of the dragon's lofty posture, but because of the dragon's decision. It is well known that dragons are extremely stingy and greedy, especially regarding wealth. Even the good dragons of the metal dragon type are the same. Although metal dragons are friendly, they won't give you even a copper coin. If you dare to invade its wealth, it will show you what the power and double standards of a giant dragon mean, and you will be directly cast into the evil camp, just as the bronze dragon, who loves eating Shawa fishmen, doesn't acknowledge fishmen as a wise race. And the five-colored evil dragons display even more blatantly, they are not only stingy and greedy but also love to exploit and extort others' wealth. Even towards their beloved, many evil five-colored giant dragons merely treat these beloved as objects of exploitation, collecting treasures as much as possible, and much less likely to reward others with their own wealth. Especially the red dragon, famed for being bandits and extortionists in almost all planes. Many red dragons like to abduct princesses of human kingdoms, not largely because they covet beauty, but to extort those tempting gold coins. Of course, some red dragons particularly love the taste of humans and elf maidens, seeing humans and elf maidens as delicacies. And now this red dragon before them would actually reward others with its treasures. Mage Lazy's eyes widened as if witnessing a mortal defeat a deity. This scene was as unbelievable as a fairy tale. Mage Lazy feared that the red dragon before him was testing him. As soon as he reached out, that terrifying big mouth would open and swallow him. So he planned to tactfully refuse the reward from the red dragon, as wealth was important, but for a mage, life was even more precious. But when Mage Lazy's eyes swept across the treasures before him, he felt he should bravely try. In this pile of treasures, there were red gemstones sparkling as clear as agate, fist-sized silver-grey glittering ores, and items appearing enveloped in a layer of flame like refined iron block, as well as crystal particles emitting various sparkling lights. The appearance of these treasures suddenly caused the crowd on the street to exclaim. These adventurers and residents couldn't resist gathering around. My gosh, that's secret silver ore, its value is at least 10 times that of equivalent gold, extremely precious treasure, also possessing tremendous magic power extensibility, indispensable material for crafting many powerful magic weapons. And as solid as dragon scale, as light as feather, an experienced adventurer exclaimed. And refined gold, this kind of refined gold is heavy and sturdy, with strong anti-magic attribute, one of the best materials for making anti-magic equipment, a hot commodity in the auction house. Many powerful warriors like to mix this unique metal into their armor. Mage Reza, of course, knew the value of these treasures. He possessed the dual identity of adventurer and mage, and his knowledge and insights exceeded those of these experienced adventurers. He was just hesitating, each treasure before him difficult to part with. Secret silver ore not only could be used to craft magic weapons, but was also essential for every mage constructing their mage tower. The mage tower's engraved magic array required a lot of secret silver. But those pure magic crystals and magic gemstones flashing with various magic lights also tempted him. These magic crystals and magic gemstones were high-grade materials. They could also help mages accumulate magic power faster and create secret treasure apparatus to help mages recover magic power. Mage Reza painfully closed his eyes, wishing all these treasures before him were his. In the end, Mage Reza made his choice. Panting heavily, he pointed at the piece of mithril ore that shimmered with a silvery grey luster and said, I choose this piece of mithril ore, my great dragon. Karon nodded and used his dragon claw to pull the baby fist-sized mithril ore from the pile of treasures and tossed it to the mage. Very well, this mithril ore is now yours. Mage Reza happily accepted the mithril ore, his face beaming. However, the surrounding adventurers began to stir, feeling troubled not by scarcity but by inequality. Furthermore, the dragon's demeanor made them less intimidated. Damn, that mage is really lucky to be rewarded with such a precious treasure. I contributed last night too. I think I should talk to the dragon. Although I don't expect a reward of equal value, I should receive something. Yet, we defended the dragon's territory last night. We deserve a reward from the dragon. The crowd began to clamor, gradually surrounding the dragon and its beloved. The dragon descendant Wolfman Saha's crimson eyes lit up, and his retracting claws popped out as he and his dragon keen blocked the gap between the dragon and the crowd. In his heart, no one was allowed the slightest affront to the red dragon. Kleena felt the tense atmosphere too. Although these humans weren't truly a threat to the dragon, she bared her fangs and let out a deep growl as a warning, forbidding the crowd from getting any closer. Karon's massive body remained unmoved, watching these humans with cold vertical pupils. His will was not to be swayed. He had considered rewarding every warrior who participated in last night's defense against the fishmen, but he changed his mind. He decided only to set an example, and only those who performed outstandingly would receive his rewards. Under Karon's gaze, these humans felt the overwhelming pressure emanating from the dragon and gradually closed their mouths, beginning to disperse. At this moment, the stout dwarf warrior Klagan squeezed out from the crowd, his eyes fervently fixed on the piece of iron engulfed in flames blazing refined gold. This refined gold is one of the best materials for weapon making in the world. Weapons forged from it can harness the power of flames, and it's the most beloved treasure of the dwarf race. They love crafting it into the warhammers in their hands, which can become artisans' hammers for crafting weapons or heavy hammers for crafting enemies' bodies. The thick voice of dwarf warrior Klagan was eager as he asked the dragon, "Honored dragon, what conditions are required to trade for this refined gold?" The red dragon's massive head shook slightly as it said, "A dragon lacks no wealth. Only those who make outstanding contributions to the dragon group territory can receive my rewards, or those who pledge allegiance to the dragon group and bring aid." Dwarf Klagan's eyes lit up, and he loudly declared, "I am willing to pledge allegiance to the great dragon, hoping the dragon would grant me that blazing refined gold. The dragon accepts no useless individuals, dwarf. Speak of your skills, and let me see if you are worthy to pledge allegiance to the dragon," the deep voice of the red dragon echoed in the dwarf's ear. Although Karon's treatment of Mage Reza today was meant to attract others to serve the dragon group, he hadn't expected a dwarf to offer himself up as an example so soon. Nevertheless, he maintained a relatively high posture. "Haha, everyone in the world knows that every dwarf is an excellent blacksmith. I can forge sharp weapons and sturdy armor for the dragon's beloved, as long as there is enough good wine," Dwarf Klagan boomed. "Very well, I look forward to your performance," the red dragon responded with satisfaction. The territory was currently in need of such skilled personnel. With that, he used his dragon claw to push out that piece of blazing refined gold and tossed it to the dwarf warrior, asking, "What is your name, warrior of the dwarves, now the dragon's artisan official?" "Klagan, Klagan Mim, that is my name, my great dragon," dwarf warrior Klagan, though rough in appearance, replied courteously with a bow. "Well then, Klagan Mim, I hope you can obtain more treasures from me." The red dragon stood up, satisfied with today's demeanor. Thus, the red dragon spread its wide, powerful scale wings and leapt into the sky, riding the flowing wind to its dragon nest. Young dragon Kleena also ascended into the air, closely following Karon. The sudden rush of wind blew Klagan's beard and the braids on his head astray, but he didn't mind at all. At that moment, the dwarf warrior tightly gripped the refined gold in his hand and roared up at the dragon in the sky, "Ha, just wait, my great dragon, Klagan is indeed a greedy dwarf warrior." Source: webnovel.com, updated by novlove.com. Chapter 99-48, A Bright Tomorrow. Chapter 99, Chapter 48, A Bright Tomorrow. The weather was clear, with not a cloud in the sky, as the morning sun rose in the azure blue heavens. The calm and vast sea sparkled under the sunlight, with the occasional lone shark being chased by schools of dolphins, various fins slicing through the water's surface, stirring up ripples and waves. Schools of fish leapt out of the water, revealing their white bellies. Seabirds and gulls schemed over the sea, their sharp talons piercing these unlucky prey before soaring into the sky. The sound of waves crashing against the shore and the cries of birds hunting awoke the creatures and humans residing in this land, as the once quiet golden harbor town gradually came to life. High above in the sky, a giant dragon flew across,